Chapter 16:27. Sean's half-eaten roasted pig's eyes ended up in Abraham's mouth. My roasted pig's eyes are here. Do you want to try them? Abraham had 5 skewers of roasted pig's eyes in front of him. He looked at Vanessa with a smile and said, "When we return to Rendezvous, we won't be able to eat such wild delicacies anymore. I don't want them." Vanessa shook her head, but her throat moved subconsciously. Although she felt goosebumps at the thought of those skewers of pig's eyes, her body was very honestly tempted by the aroma. "Big brother, can I not go back? Please, I don't want to go home. I want to continue staying with Uncle." Vanessa shifted her gaze away from the roasted pig's eyes and looked at Sean pitifully. Look at him. He's so lonely. If he eats too much and falls sick one day, how pitiful would it be for him to be alone in a foreign land? No. I'm not lonely at all. Food is my best playmate. Chaos City is my heaven, and Mamie's is my second home. I'm not pitiful at all. Abraham shook his head as he took a bite of the pig's eye and closed his eyes blissfully. I've eaten the roasted pig's eyes. This time, it's your turn to fulfill your promise, Sean said sincerely as he looked into Vanessa's eyes. All right, I'm just kidding. Vanessa shrugged and sighed. Here, I can't bring this back to Rendezvous for you. Abraham picked up a skewer of roasted pig's eyes and passed it to her. Is it really delicious? Vanessa was still a little doubtful. Of course. Once you try it, I believe you won't be able to reject it. Abraham nodded with certainty and took another pig's eye into his mouth. He used his slightly exaggerated expression to express his absolute respect for this eyeball. Young mistress, if you don't like it, you'd better not eat it, Laura persuaded softly. She knew the princess's tolerance limit very well. Such terrifying food was already beyond what she could accept. Indeed, there's no need for that. Sean nodded as well. Although the roasted pig's eyes gave him quite a pleasant surprise, he didn't have a desire to eat another skewer of pig's eyes. No, if I don't try it myself, it will be one of my biggest regrets. Vanessa's gaze suddenly became determined. She took a deep breath and took the skewer of roasted pig's eyes from Abraham's hands. She closed her eyes and bit into one of the skewers. After the experience of Sean and Abraham being scalded, Vanessa was extra careful this time. The flexible pig's eye was like a mischievous elf as it darted left and right his mouth. His teeth gently rubbed against the surface of the eye, as if he was afraid that he would accidentally break it. However, he was also filled with anticipation towards the thing inside the eyeball. This process was undoubtedly very torturous. The faint anticipation and fear had even surpassed the pig's eye itself. Finally, the pig's eye that had been mischievous in her mouth for a long time was caught off guard by her bite. At the moment when the liquid exploded, the warm liquid finally blossomed. This was the true meaning of life. Vanessa felt as if a rainbow had appeared in front of her tightly shut eyes. It was a beautiful taste that made her feel radiant. After the liquid exploded, the wonderful texture of chewing on the eyeball quickly made her forget about the fact that it was a terrifying pig's eye. She even had a strange thought. So what if it's an eyeball? As long as it's delicious. This roasted pig's eye is too good. It's crazy and addictive. Vanessa opened her eyes in surprise. She looked at the roasted pig's eye in her hand as if she had found a treasure. Right? It's super good. Abraham chuckled. He knew Vanessa's taste very well. How could she resist such a delicacy? But miss, this is a pig's eye. Laura looked at Vanessa in confusion. Since when did the princess, who was even afraid of pigs, dare to chew on a pig's eye and even praise it as delicious? No, this is not a pig's eye. Vanessa shook her head. With a serious expression, she said, "This is a roasted pig's eye made by Mr. Mac. Ever since it was put on the grill, it was no longer an ordinary pig's eye. It was a pig's eye that was blessed by the god of cookery. The beautiful rainbow is its protective color. It's irresistible." Huh. Laura was still a little confused. Anyway, it's delicious. Vanessa took another bite of the roasted pig's eye and added, "Give me 5 more skewers." No, 10 skewers of roasted pig's eye. 10 skewers? Yes, 10 skewers. Vanessa nodded with certainty. When we return to Rendezvous, We won't be able to eat such delicious food anymore. This. Sean looked at Vanessa, who was happily chewing on the roasted pig's eye, and didn't know what to say for a moment. He could only silently pick up a piece of fish and put it into his mouth. Fuck, it's insanely spicy again. Sean's face turned red instantly, but he couldn't do anything too exaggerated. He could only grit his teeth and hold it in. Vanessa and Abraham had a hearty dinner, while Sean walked out of Amy's, speechless. Go back and get ready. I'll come and fetch you tomorrow morning. Sean helped Vanessa into the carriage. Before he lowered the curtain, he looked at her and said gently, Father and Mother really miss you. Actually, I miss them too. Don't worry, I'll go home with Big Brother Sean tomorrow. Vanessa nodded obediently. Okay. Sean nodded. He lowered the curtain and watched the carriage disappear into the distance. Then he got into another black carriage and coldly instructed, Let's go back. Invite me to the Magic Caster Conference? I'm not interested. Crassus played with the fireball in his hand and waved his hand disinterestedly. Master, Crassus, you've always been the one to open the Magic Caster Conference in the past. You're the one who initiated the Magic Caster Conference, and also an important promoter of the development of magic. If you don't attend the Magic Caster Conference, many young magic casters who embarked on the path of magic because of your influence will be very disappointed, Brent said awkwardly. An awkward expression appeared on Brent's face as he stood at the door. They were going back to Rhoda the next day, so they had no choice but to come to CrossFit today. If they couldn't get his approval, they would all be punished when they returned. Yes, Master Crassus. This time, we're not only inviting you, we're also inviting your precious disciple to attend the Magic Caster Conference. She'll be the youngest registered magic caster. Elliot nodded at the side. You want Amy to attend the Magic Caster Conference and compete for the qualifiers? Crassus turned to look at Elliot, and his eyes narrowed slightly. That's right. Your disciple is still young. We can let her join the infant group. Elliot quickly corrected himself. Crassus shook his head and said, No need. The infant group is just a friendly competition. It's not challenging at all. Let her participate in the official qualifiers for the younger generation of magic casters. But wouldn't that be too unfair to her? Elliot asked worriedly. I'm the one who set this stupid rule, and this disciple is also mine. Do you understand, or do I understand? Boss, you have the final say. Elliot immediately gave in. Bookhouse Reading Website. Chapter 1628. After leaving the Grey Temple, Irina looked at Meg's back view and asked, What do you think about that mural of the giant dragons? It proves that our previous inference is correct. The great old ones really exist, and they do have the ability to bewitch people and make the whole world go crazy. Meg stopped in his tracks and looked at Irina. Moreover, they once worked together to seal the great old ones back then. This means that those fellows are not invincible. Before they completely remove the seal and escape, as long as the whole Norland continent cooperates, we might be able to find a way to seal them again. Irina was silent for a while and said, Since the giant dragons already know about the existence of the great old ones, they will definitely stand on our side during the peace talks. I don't think so. It's still unknown whether the giant dragon race will stand on our side because of the mural. As an extremely conceited race, they will always think that the giant dragon race is the strongest existence. It won't be easy for them to believe and admit that there are existences that are stronger than them in this world, and that can even kill them like mosquitoes. Meg shook his head. He wasn't too optimistic, but he still smiled and said, However, this will be a big piece of evidence for us. Together with the evidence and information we have now, we might be able to convince more people that the great old ones really exist in this world. What about Sean? Are we just going to let him go without doing anything? Irina asked. What do you want to do? Meg asked with a smile. Forget it. Since we can't kill him, there's no point. Irina thought for a while and shook her head. I'm afraid I won't be able to resist killing him if I see him. The renovation of the brightly lit hot pot restaurant had been completed. Raina, who had just gotten off work from Amy's, was now standing in front of a group of elves and lecturing them. I'll be in control of the hot pot's base during the early stages. However, in terms of the ingredients, serving, and service, you still need to strictly follow the restaurant's procedures. Our hot pot restaurant will be open for business in 3 days. There's not much time left for us to practice, but we must do our best before the opening. Raina looked at the 50 or so elves before her with a serious expression and said, "Everyone has been working very hard these past few days, and we're already able to maintain the intensity of a meal for 1,000 people. However, this is still not enough, because if an accident were to occur at this level, everything would be thrown into chaos." All of the elves listened intently without showing any signs of impatience. All of you are the most outstanding elves chosen by the Night Elves. I know that your abilities and limits are far from enough. Moreover, you will start to rotate in batches in 3 months. I think that before you leave, you will all become top-notch chefs. Raina smiled and said to the elves, "I hope we can make Mana Hot Pot Restaurant the second-best hot pot restaurant in Chaos City in the next 3 months." All the elves also smiled. Raina continued, "All right, we will practice for another 3 hours today. Expand the coverage area for everyone. Simplify the steps of serving and clarify the serving route and sequence. Princess, can't you sleep?" Laura, who was lying in the outer room, heard the sound of tossing and turning in bed. She got out of bed, lit an oil lamp, put on her clothes, and walked to the bed to ask softly. Vanessa turned around, and her eyes sparkled under the light. She sat up from the bed immediately and said to Laura, "Laura, let's run away again." "Huh?" Laura was stunned. She quickly shook her head and said, "No, Princess. We can't run away again. If His Highness catches us, I'll definitely be beaten to death. Don't be afraid. I'm here. I'll protect you." Vanessa pulled Laura to the bed and softly said, "I don't want to go home at all. I haven't had enough fun yet. Those fellows in Rodu are not interesting at all. It's more fun outside." Laura looked at Vanessa, and her heart softened. She knew better than anyone what the princess had been through all these years. Those nobles and young mistresses were all sucking up to the princess on the surface, but none of them really treated her as a friend in private. They even said some nasty things to her. Hence, the princess didn't like gatherings, didn't like Rodu, and didn't like those young mistresses from noble families. The past few months in Chaos City were probably the happiest days for the princess. She had never smiled so happily every day like she did during this period of time. She made some humble but honest friends and even had her teeth healed. Laura looked at Vanessa and asked, "But Your Highness, your teeth are already healed. You're the most beautiful woman in Rhoda now. Don't you want those fellows who used to talk bad about you and laugh at you behind your back to take a good look at you now, and then let them cry at home?" "Huh?" Vanessa faltered. After pondering for a while, she looked at Laura and confirmed, "Am I really the most beautiful woman in Rhoda now?" There's no woman more beautiful than you." Laura nodded seriously with a smile on her face. She didn't know where the princess had picked up this dialect from. In that case, there really is one more reason to go back. Vanessa rested her chin on her hand, and the corners of her lips began to curl upward. She was already looking forward to the next royal banquet, where she would wear a gorgeous dress and look down on those little bitches with their jaws dropped. "All right, since father and mother both miss me, I'll go back." Vanessa nodded. Laura heaved a sigh of relief. She still didn't know what kind of punishment she would receive when she returned to the palace. After all, she had left the palace with the princess without reporting it, and that was already a crime worthy of death 100 times. "Let's go back and stay for a while. After that, we'll run out again and come back to Chaos City," Vanessa continued. "You're still running away?" "Of course. Mamis is the source of my happiness every day. Of course, we're still going to come back." Vanessa nodded with certainty. In a conference hall, Sean, 2 generals, and 2 great magic casters were gathered together. "Your Highness, Alex and Irina haven't appeared in the past 2 days. Could they be plotting something?" One of the generals asked Sean with a worried expression. "Yes, those 2 are so arrogant. They didn't even try to restrain themselves in Rodu, but they're so quiet in Chaos City. I'm afraid there's something fishy going on." Brent nodded as he rubbed his fat belly. Everyone chimed in one after another, and the atmosphere in the conference hall became a little tense. Even though they had 2 10th-tier knights and 2 10th-tier magic casters, they were up against 2 super demon kings, Alex and Irina. Even though they had a numerical advantage, they didn't have the slightest bit of confidence in being able to defeat them. They have indeed changed. If they were still Alex and Irina, I would have met them before I even reached Chaos City, Sean said with a grave expression. This situation made him even more worried. Chapter 16:30. Isn't it just drawing a picture? Although the client's requirements are a bit high, at least they didn't ask for a square circle. Meg raised his eyebrows and looked at Hannah in his arms. He still carried her upstairs and put her on her bed in the study, covering her with a blanket. There was floor heating in the room, so the temperature was just right. It was a good place to sleep. Let's hope this machine is reliable. Meg went downstairs, took the stack of drawings, and went to the blacksmith shop next door. Meg asked Mabai to make the brewing machine. Mabai knew many excellent dwarven blacksmiths. After confirming that there were no problems with the drawings, he agreed to Meg's business. In addition to the agreed amount of money, he also asked for 3 servings of Yangzhou fried rice a day, the kind that would be delivered directly to the door. Once the project started, it would be very busy. There would be no time to wait in line for 1 or 2 hours in front of Mamie's. So Meg agreed to this request without hesitation. He would let Hannah be in charge of delivering the food. She had nothing to do recently anyway. Mr. Mac, don't be in such a hurry to leave. Let me show you something. Mabai stopped Meg, who was about to leave, and led him to the empty room next door. In the empty room, there were some metal pieces and tools scattered on the floor. In the middle of the room, there was an object that was about the height of a person and covered by a black cloth. What is this? Meg was a bit confused. Mabai went forward and pulled off the black cloth forcefully. An awe-inspiring cannon appeared in Meg's vision. This is my latest improved automatic firing cannon. After changing the ignition method, the firing efficiency has been greatly improved. Moreover, the firing range and hit rate have also increased by a lot. Now, it can accurately hit a fixed target 500 meters away. The radius of destruction is 100 meters, and the furthest it can go is 800 meters, Mabai said excitedly. Meg's eyes lit up. He walked around the cannon and nodded in praise. That's a huge improvement. It's all thanks to Mr. Mac's advice. Mabai scratched his head in embarrassment. If it wasn't for Mr. Mac's advice, he wouldn't have known how to improve it. All I did was share some of my thoughts. It's all thanks to you that you were able to complete it to this extent, Meg said with a smile. He was indeed surprised by Mabai's hands-on ability and talent in making cannons. It's just that this kind of power isn't even comparable to a level 3 magician's fireball spell. Mabai sighed softly, but a confident smile soon appeared on his face. But I've recently discussed with a few fire mages. If we add some active fire element materials into the explosives, it might be able to increase the power of the explosives. It's just that we haven't decided on how to implement it yet. That's a good direction. Meg nodded in agreement. He didn't know much about explosives in his previous life, and didn't know how to make powerful explosives. After all, this was a world with magic. Adding agitated magic element materials was indeed a good way to increase the power of the explosives. Meg was about to return to the restaurant after coming out from Mabai's blacksmith shop. However, he saw that the sun was just right, so he changed his direction and walked toward the park. Aiden Square had the biggest park in Chaos City. It hadn't snowed for a while, so the snow had almost melted. There were only some ice shards left in the dark corners where the sun couldn't reach. The children were playing in the park, while the adults found empty seats to sit and chat with each other. The bright sunshine dispelled the chill of winter, making one's mood seem relaxed and cheerful. You said you have kidney deficiency? Don't look for those charlatans. Let me tell you a good place. Go to Mamie's and order Buddha Jumps Over the Wall. It's a nourishing and holy dish that cures kidney deficiency. It doesn't contain any sugar. One serving is more effective than taking medicine for half a year. I guarantee that your wife will be obedient to you. You said your memory isn't very good recently? Then go to Mamie's too. Eat more steamed fish head with diced hot red peppers. I guarantee that your brain will be sharper than your grandson's. You won't have a headache tutoring homework in the future. You said your skin is dry and you have pimples, your face is yellow and wrinkled, and your husband is not at home? Hurry up and arrange for Mamie's tofu pudding. Eat a bowl every day, and in less than a month, your husband will be a groom every day. What kind of place is Mamie's? A pharmacy? You don't know? This is the best restaurant in Chaos City. However, if you want to say that it's a pharmacy, it's not completely wrong. After all, there are so many difficult and complicated diseases that even doctors and magic casters can't do anything about, but they can be cured after having a meal at Mamie's. There's no injection or medicine, and delicious food is a form of enjoyment. Where else can we find such a good thing? Mag walked past a group of chatting uncles and aunties in the park with a blush on his face. He didn't think that there would be such a rumor going around. Wasn't he the best chef in the world? Why did he feel like he was a quack doctor? However, hearing that so many people had obtained a pleasant surprise while reaping delicious food at Mamie's gave him a sense of achievement. Meg didn't want to be a doctor, as that would be disrespectful to his profession, but he didn't mind continuing to do what he was doing. He wanted more customers to benefit and perhaps even change their lives, so that was also a great encouragement to him. After strolling around the park, Meg went to the ice cream shop. Even though the weather was very cold, that didn't stop the enthusiasm of the children and young people. The ice cream shop was still doing very well, and Mia and the others were all very busy. After finishing their work here, they still had to go to the restaurant to continue preparing for lunch. Isn't ice cream just ice cubes? Why do so many people like to eat it? And why do they like it in such cold weather? Angela stood beside the ice cream machine and looked on with a perplexed expression as Mia handed one ice cream after another to the customers. In such cold weather, it wouldn't be difficult for even a normal person to obtain ice cubes. As for the different colors of the different ice creams, that was most likely due to the addition of some kind of color-matching substance. Angela, do you want to try an ice cream? You haven't tried one yet, right? Mia handed the last ice cream to a young girl and turned to look at Angela with a smile. Angela actually wasn't very interested in ice cream. In such cold weather, even if she stayed indoors, she still didn't want to eat something cold. This ice cream is super delicious. I'll treat you. Which flavor do you want? Yabamia asked with a smile. Angela looked at Yabamia and hesitated for a moment before saying, I'll have a strawberry one. Bookhouse reading website. Chapter 1631. 5 minutes later, Angela stuck out her pink tongue and licked the ice cream at the corner of her mouth. She was a little embarrassed, but she looked at Mia expectantly and asked, Big Sister Mia, how much is this ice cream? Can I buy one? She realized that she was completely wrong. The ice cream was not an ice cube at all, but an exceptionally delicious dessert. It melted in the mouth and did not have the hardness and bone-chilling coldness of ice cubes. The rich strawberry fragrance and sweetness made one indulge in it. It was a delicacy that made one unable to extricate themselves from. Mia smiled and said, The ice cream is 200 copper coins each. According to Boss's rules, employees can enjoy a 10% discount, which is 20 copper coins each. A 10% discount? Angela's eyes lit up. She didn't expect there to be such benefits as an employee of Mamie's. She pondered seriously for a while and said, Then can I have a strawberry ice cream and a blueberry ice cream? Mia quickly passed a blueberry ice cream to Angela and reminded her, Of course, but Boss said that you can only have 3 ice creams at a time. So after these 2 ice creams, you can't have any more ice creams today. Angela nodded, but she was soon immersed in the delicious blueberry ice cream. This fruit that she had never heard of also brought a very wonderful eating experience. Speaking of which, Mr. Mac is indeed more talented than the crayfish restaurant's boss. Even a dessert can be so delicious, and he knows how to cook all kinds of delicious food, not just crayfish, Angela thought to herself as she licked the ice cream. However, since he is Boss's disciple, why doesn't Boss care about him at all? Angela thought to herself, feeling strange. After all, the crayfish restaurant had disappeared mysteriously, and only a pile of gravel was left behind. The crayfish restaurant's boss and his family of 3 had disappeared mysteriously. Of course, she was most curious about Jane, who was helping at the side. This demon maiden with golden horns on her head was her colleague at the crayfish restaurant on Carapace Island. Why would she appear in Chaos City, which was thousands of miles away, and in this restaurant? Since yesterday, she hadn't found a chance to be alone with Jane, so she hadn't asked the question in her heart. After she left, Jane should still be in the crayfish restaurant. Perhaps she would know where the crayfish restaurant owner's family of three went. If she asks, how should I answer? Boss said that it's best not to mention what happened on Carapace Island and expose his identity. What should I say? Jane thought worriedly in her heart. She was the worst at lying. She didn't know what to say or how to cover up her lie. Doesn't Big Sister Camilla come to the ice cream shop usually? Angela looked at Mia and asked softly, That's right. Sister Camilla will only appear in the restaurant before the opening hours. She and Phyllis will be in charge of the cutting work. They have to cut and mix all the ingredients needed during the opening hours. It's a huge workload. Mia nodded and said with a smile, but she doesn't seem to want others to know that she works in the restaurant, so she leaves after every meal and never appears during business hours. So that's how it is. Angela nodded thoughtfully. As a demon, of course she knew who Camilla was. She was the princess of the vampire race, the famous Black Widow Countess Bartoli. Angela was indeed shocked when she first found out that she was in charge of the cutting work at Mamie's with her status and identity. After all, the ancestor of the vampire race changed a few months ago. The vampire Dracula became the new ancestor, and that was Camilla's biological uncle. As a ruthless character who caused the death of her husband on their wedding night, Angela felt a trace of a similar aura from her. All these years, she hadn't remarried. While it was touching, it also made Angela a little suspicious. After all, she didn't look like a vampire who would stay a widow for the rest of her life at all. However, with her status and ability, why would she be willing to be a clerk in this restaurant? Was it just to experience life? Or was it related to the boss? It's really an interesting restaurant. Angela licked the ice cream, and the corners of her lips curled up. Perhaps she would be able to find out something interesting here. Let's go. I really can't treat this eye disease, an old doctor said resolutely as he sent Lucy and her brother out. Doctor, I beg you, please take a look at my brother. He's only 10 years old. Lucy grabbed the doctor's sleeve and took out a cloth bag with reddened eyes as she said, We have money. We have medical fees. Please take a look at his eyes. This was already the 5th doctor they had rejected, and it was said that he was the best doctor in Chaos City who could treat eyes. The simple sled, the blind young man, and the skinny young lady quickly attracted the attention of the passers-by. Many people stopped and looked at them with pity. Young lady, this isn't a matter of money. If it can be treated, I will definitely help. The old doctor shook his head and sighed as he looked at Darren. It's just that this eye disease is really strange. I've been a doctor for decades and have treated more than 10,000 patients with eye diseases, but I've never seen such a strange disease. Using medicine rashly might worsen the condition, so I don't dare to take over. Perhaps other knowledgeable doctors will have a way. Isn't that Dr. Adolphus? Yes, the best ophthalmologist in Chaos City. He has brought light and new life to many patients. Then, why doesn't he want to treat this young man's eyes? Who knows? Maybe it's a very tricky situation. If even Dr. Adolphus can't do anything, I think it's impossible. So pitiful. He can't see at such a young age. What is he going to do in the future? The onlookers discussed softly with some sighs. Lucy's tears could no longer be stopped as she watched the doctor and the onlookers helplessly. She had dragged Darren all the way to Chaos City and found the best doctor with the money that the villagers had pooled together, but they still couldn't make Darren see again. Was there really no way to treat his eyes? It's all right, big sister. Let's go home. I'm fine. Darren reached out and felt around in the air as a pale smile appeared on his tender face. Lucy wiped her tears away and grabbed Darren's hand as she resolutely said, No, Darren, I will definitely cure your eyes. I will let you see this world again. The onlookers' voices became softer as they looked at the pair of siblings with pity. They should have walked a long way. The little girl's straw shoes were already worn out, and her little feet were red from the cold. There were also 2 deep scratches on her shoulders from the old and tattered animal skin coat. She was so young, but she had to shoulder so many things. It was heart-wrenching. "Little girl, let me bring you to a place. Perhaps it can cure your little brother's eye disease." An old man walked out from the crowd. He put the account book under his armpit and reached his hand out to Lucy. "I am Christopher, the accountant of Albert's jewelry shop. No pop-up window." Chapter 16:32. Do you really know a place that can cure Darren's eyes? Lucy looked at this kind-looking old man hesitantly. Ever since she came to Chaos City, she had already been recommended 4 or 5 times, but none of the doctors could cure Darren's eyes. "Yes, you might not believe it, but just yesterday my eyes were no longer able to read what was written in the account book normally. But today I can see the birds singing in the trees in the distance. It's all so unbelievable," Christopher said with a smile. He even had a look of disbelief on his face. "Little girl, you don't have to worry that this old gentleman is lying to you. Albert's jewelry shop is the biggest jewelry shop in Chaos City, and Mr. Christopher is a very friendly and helpful gentleman. He might really be able to help you," a well-dressed lady at the side said to Lucy with a smile. "Long time no see, Madam Catherine." Christopher looked at the lady and nodded slightly in greeting. She was a regular customer of the gold shop, and he often saw her when he was on duty. Lucy's eyes lit up again when she heard that. She looked at Christopher and said, "If it's possible, please bring us to that place." Although she had failed many times, she still felt warmth in Chaos City. Everyone was trying to help them passionately. However, Darren's eyes seemed to be very troublesome. So far, no doctor had said that they could cure him. Christopher looked at the simple sleigh parked at the side, and a hint of heartache flashed across his eyes. He said in a gentle voice, "That place is a little far from here. Leave your sleigh here for now, and take my carriage there." Lucy nodded. She pulled Darren and followed behind Christopher. She kept looking back at her sleigh worriedly. "Little girl, don't worry. I will look after the sleigh for you," Dr. Adolphus said with a smile. "Thank you," Lucy quickly said gratefully. She was finally relieved. "Get on." Christopher helped Darren into the horse-drawn carriage, and only got on after Lucy got on. The 4-wheeled carriage was rather spacious. There were seats on 3 sides, and soft animal skin was laid out. However, Lucy and Darren were still standing a little awkwardly. Christopher sat down at the side and said to the two of them with a smile, "Have a seat. Why are you standing? I can't take all the seats by myself. Our bodies are too dirty. We can't dirty your seat. We only need to stand." Lucy shook her head and said as she looked at her dirty animal skin clothes that she had fallen a few times on the road. "You child." Christopher sighed in his heart. The little girl was about the same age as his granddaughter, but his granddaughter was studying in Chaos School now and had a horse-drawn carriage to send her to and from school every day. "It's okay. You can wash it if it's dirty. Hurry up and sit down. It's not safe to stand. It won't be a joke if you fall," Christopher said as gently as he could. Then, Lucy looked around and pulled Darren to sit on the floor of the carriage. She looked at Christopher with a radiant smile and said, "We can sit here. It's also very soft and comfortable." The inside of the carriage was carpeted, which was much more resistant to dirt than the animal skin cushions. Christopher looked at the smiling young lady and the silent young man and fell silent for a moment. He also smiled and said, "All right, let's set off then." The horse-drawn carriage continued forward, but it stopped for a while when it passed by a clothing shop. Christopher alighted and came back with 2 sets of clothes and a pair of red leather boots. "Come, children, change your clothes first. It's so cold today, don't catch a cold." Christopher handed the clothes and shoes to Lucy and turned to walk out. "I'll wait for you under the carriage. Let me know when you're done changing." Lucy shook her head as she looked at the bright clothes and red shoes and said, "Mr. Christopher, we have clothes. We're not cold at all. Little girl, you're about the same age as my granddaughter, so just take it as a small gift from Grandpa. After you change your clothes, I'll bring you to see your eyes," Christopher said with a smile as he put down the curtain and alighted from the carriage. "Big sister." Darren turned to look at Lucy and shyly said, "Mr. Christopher is really a good person." "Yeah, just like Grandpa." Lucy nodded. She looked a little sad at the mention of her grandpa. If only Grandpa was still around. Darren also pursed his lips slightly. It's all right. As long as your eyes can be cured, Grandpa will be very happy in heaven. Let's change our clothes first. Then, we won't have to worry about dirtying Mr. Christopher's carriage. Lucy quickly changed the topic and took out Darren's clothes for him to change into. It was a dark blue cotton coat, and it was a little too big for Darren. However, he immediately became much more energetic after changing into it. It's so warm. What comfortable clothes. Darren raised his hand, and a rare smile appeared on his face. Lucy also took off her dirty and tattered bee-skin coat and pants and put on the soft cotton coat and pants. It was as if she had crawled into a warm bed, and it was so comfortable that she wanted to sleep. Her clothes fit her very well, as if they were tailor-made for her. The coat was a white bee-skin coat, unlike her rough leather coat. It was soft and comfortable and felt very warm just by touching it. It should be the fur of some magical beast, and it was a terrifying existence that even the best hunter in the village wouldn't dare to provoke. Lucy only reached out to touch the coat and then folded it neatly and gently placed it on a chair at the side. Her gaze landed on the pair of red leather boots at the side. What a beautiful pair of shoes. The workmanship was stunning. Red top, black sole, and a layer of soft and comfortable brown fur in the shoes. Even the shoemaker in the village had never made such beautiful shoes. She lowered her head to look at her feet. Her toes, which were red from the cold, were sticking out from the holes in the straw sandals. It looked rather comical. Can I accept such a precious gift? Lucy was a little conflicted. She couldn't take her eyes off the red shoes. Are you done? Christopher's voice sounded from outside the carriage. We can't delay Darren's treatment. Lucy quickly picked up the pair of red shoes and quickly took off her straw sandals and put on the new pair of shoes. Oh, it's so warm. Lucy's eyes lit up immediately. She felt as if her frozen feet were placed on a warm oven. Translator, Atlas Studios editor, Atlas Studios. Chapter 1633. The warm feeling on her feet made Lucy want to cry. She had never worn such comfortable shoes before. Sister, Darren tilted his head in confusion. I'm fine, Lucy quickly replied. Then, she reached out to lift the curtain and said to Mr. Christopher, who was waiting outside the carriage, Sir, we're done changing. Why aren't you wearing a coat? Christopher asked with a frown as he got onto the carriage and looked at the leather coat that Lucy had folded neatly at the side. I'm really grateful that you brought us to see the doctor and gave us new clothes. However, this leather coat is too precious. I can't accept it. Lucy shook her head with a smile and said, I'm already very warm wearing this. I've never been so warm before. Christopher's heart ached even more when he saw the innocent smile on Lucy's face. He glanced at the pure white leather coat and hesitated for a while. But he didn't insist and nodded. All right, then take a seat. We should set off now. If we're late, we won't be able to get in the queue. Lucy pulled Darren to a chair at the side and sat down awkwardly. She looked at Christopher and curiously asked, Is that a very famous doctor? Very famous. Christopher nodded. After some thought, he said, Perhaps he can also be called a doctor. That's great. Lucy's eyes lit up. That doctor must be very powerful to be able to make the old man trust him so much. Perhaps he could really treat Darren's eyes. The carriage traveled for a while before stopping. Let's go, children. We're here. Christopher got up and lifted the curtain to walk out. Darren, let's go. Lucy held Darren's hand and followed him out of the carriage. Two long queues appeared in her vision. There were elves, demons, humans, and so on. Are they all here to see a doctor? Lucy was stunned and found it a little unbelievable. Come, children, let's go to the back of the queue. Christopher waved at the two of them and walked to the back of the queue. Lucy agreed and helped Darren out of the carriage. She followed Christopher to the back of the group. But with such a long line, when would it be their turn? Lucy carefully observed the people in the queue. Their eyes were bright, and there were no injuries on their bodies. Apart from the expectant look on their faces, as if they were waiting for a doctor with superb medical skills, most of them did not look like they were sick. Christopher, why did you bring your granddaughter here today? Aren't you going to drink more rum? A white-haired old man chuckled as he looked at Christopher. They were old drinking buddies and knew each other well. He knew that Christopher had a granddaughter around the same age, but he had never met her. Yes, the weather is good today, so I brought them out for a meal. Christopher nodded with a smile. He didn't reveal Lucy and Darren's identities. Lucy nodded at the old man in greeting. Since he was Mr. Christopher's friend, he must be a good person. But wasn't this a doctor's pharmacy? Why did he want Mr. Christopher to drink more wine? Lucy was a little confused. The old man smiled and nodded at Lucy. His gaze landed on Darren, and he couldn't help but exclaim when he saw his white eyes. "What's wrong with this child's eyes?" The old man's words attracted the attention of the people around them. Darren hid behind Lucy fearfully. Although he couldn't see, he could still feel some gazes on him. The young man looked rather delicate and cute, but his eyes seemed to be blind. It was a pity that he couldn't see at such a young age. "Don't be afraid. I'm here." Lucy grabbed Darren's hand and comforted him softly. She knew that these people meant no harm. This child suddenly lost his sight recently. "I've looked for all the doctors, but they couldn't do anything about it. That's why I brought him here to Mr. Mac to try," Christopher said directly without hiding anything. He was still unsure if the sudden clarity of his eyes was really due to the rum. If he was wrong, he might harm this child and hurt the young lady's heart. "This child can't see. Shouldn't you bring him to see a doctor? Why did you bring Mr. Mac here to try?" "I've never heard that Mr. Mac knows how to treat eyes," the old man said with a puzzled expression. "Yeah, I've heard that Mr. Mac knows how to treat hair loss and kidney deficiency, but I've never heard that he knows how to treat eyes." "That's right. Mr. Mac has already become the best hairdresser in Chaos City. But if we're talking about treating eyes, Dr. Adolphus should be more professional, right?" The people around them also chimed in. "We came here from Dr. Adolphus's place just now. He couldn't do anything about it, either." Christopher shook his head and said in a low voice, "I brought this child here because my presbyopia, which had been getting worse for the past few years, suddenly disappeared when I woke up this morning. My eyes suddenly became clear, and I felt as if I was 20 years younger. It wasn't difficult for me to read the accounts anymore. I didn't do anything special these few days. I just like to come to Mamie's and have 2 glasses of rum. Tell me, do you think Mr. Mac cured my eyes?" Everyone looked at Christopher when they heard that. His eyes were indeed clear and clean, unlike the usual cloudy eyes of an old man. Instead, they were as clear as a young man's. They couldn't help but feel puzzled. Could Mr. Mac really be able to cure eyes? Or could it be that drinking rum could clear one's eyes? "I thought it was my illusion at first, but this old man situation is rather similar to mine. My eyes used to be so blind that I couldn't recognize my own family from 5 steps away and couldn't differentiate between pigs and dogs from 10 steps away. But when I woke up this morning, my eyes suddenly returned to normal, and I can actually see things from 10 steps away." At this moment, a young man in a long robe with a half-open book in his hand stepped forward and smiled shyly. "Wow, there's a real case. Looks like Mr. Mac is really good at curing eyes." Everyone looked at the young man, and their eyes lit up. One could be said to be an accident. The 2 customers from Mamie's had their eyes cured at the same time overnight. Obviously, it had something to do with Mr. Mac. Christopher's eyes also lit up when he heard that. He said in surprise, "Could it be that rum can really cure eye diseases? I've been eating at Mr. Mac's place these few days, but I think your deduction might not be very accurate because I've never drunk rum before." The young man shook his head. The young man's words were equivalent to directly excluding rum from the equation. "If it's not rum, then what is it?" Christopher frowned. Vivian, who had been listening at the side for a while, stood up and curled her lips. "Isn't this a very simple deduction question? You and him have been eating at Mamie's these few days, but your eyes suddenly healed when you woke up today. So you just have to think carefully about what you ate at Mamie's last night. Which one has not been eaten before, and which one has been eaten by both of you last night? The answer will be out. Roasted pig's eyes. Roasted pig's eyes." Christopher and the young man blurted out almost at the same time. No pop-up window. Chapter 16:34. It was a surprise, but it also made sense. The roasted pig's eyes that had just been released yesterday was indeed the first dish that the two of them thought of. It was also the dish that had left the deepest impression on them. It's actually the roasted pig's eyes that were just released yesterday. An eye for an eye, that sounds like it. That's a little too casual, isn't it? Eating a skewer of roasted pig's eyes can actually cure one's eyes? There was an uproar among the customers when they heard that. Although many people had personally tried the roasted pig's eyes last night and were mesmerized by the special eating experience, most of the customers still stayed away from it. Although I'm not sure if it's the roasted pig's eyes, the dishes I've been eating these days have been more fixed. The roasted pig's eyes should be added on a whim yesterday, Christopher said after some thought. I've also eaten Yangzhou fried rice for 3 days in a row. I'm not sick of it, but I suddenly wanted to challenge myself yesterday, so I ordered a serving of roasted pig's eyes. The young man smiled a little embarrassedly. If Yangzhou fried rice doesn't have a specific effect, I think it's probably the roasted pig's eyes. So if you want to know if Mr. Mac can cure this young man's eyes, all you have to do is order a serving of roasted pig's eyes for him, Vivian concluded. She then looked at Christopher and said seriously, "Children shouldn't drink alcohol. Rum is a highly concentrated alcohol. Drinking it may cause problems." As the direct beneficiary of the spicy grilled fish, Vivian had no doubt that Mr. Mac's food could have a direct effect on certain illnesses. However, the right medicine, the dish had to be found first. Moreover, she had always thought that this was not a coincidence. It was Mr. Mac's intention. It was said that good medicine was bitter, but Mr. Mac made the medicine so delicious and tempting. He was really a benevolent doctor and the reincarnation of the god of cookery. Yes, I have my concerns too. I wanted to ask Mr. Mac first. After getting confirmation from this young man, I naturally won't let him drink anymore, Christopher said with a nod. Mr. Christopher, isn't this a clinic? Lucy, who was listening in confusion, asked in a low voice. Although she could feel that these people did not have any ill intentions, they did not seem to want to find a doctor to treat Darren. Instead, they wanted him to eat some kind of food here so that Darren's eyes could recover. She was a little puzzled by this. It's like this, young lady. Mamie's is a very famous restaurant. My eyes regained their sight after eating some food here, and the same thing happened to that gentleman's eyes. Since Dr. Adolphus couldn't do anything about it, perhaps Mr. Mac can give it a try. After all, he often does incredible things, Christopher explained as he looked at Lucy. Is it food, not medicine? Lucy frowned. She still found it hard to understand. Could a restaurant owner really cure Darren's eyes? Vivian looked at Lucy and comforted her. Don't worry, Mississippi Mr. Mac is a very good person. The food he makes might really work on your brother's eyes. Many people have already been reborn here. Yes. Lucy looked at the beautiful Vivian, and the trace of uneasiness in her heart gradually calmed down. Since Mr. Christopher brought them here, he must have his reasons. She really didn't know where to bring Darren. Her heart ached every time she saw his disappointed expression. I will confirm with Mr. Mac again later. He made the dish, so he must know it better, Christopher said. Lucy nodded slightly. She had already calmed down. They didn't have to wait for too long before the restaurant's door opened. A handsome chef walked out and welcomed the customers into the restaurant with a smile. Mr. Mac, I have something to ask you. Christopher brought Lucy and Darren to the entrance of the restaurant. He stopped and looked at Meg and said, "Which of the dishes you make can treat eye diseases?" Meg was stunned by this old man's question. This question was a little out of the ordinary, wasn't it? Who would prescribe medicine in a restaurant? He glanced at the young man and young lady standing behind Christopher. The young lady looked to be about 13 or 14 years old. Her skin was yellowish, and she was skinny. Her yellow hair made her look like she had been malnourished for a long time. Her black eyes were looking at him expectantly and timidly. Meanwhile, the young man beside her was only about 10 years old. His complexion looked healthier than hers, but his eyes were deathly white. His little hand was holding the young lady's hand tightly, so he should be blind. Oh, it's like this. I met this pair of siblings on the road just now. This young man can't see, and Dr. Adolphus can't do anything about it. So I brought them here to ask if you have any ideas, Christopher explained. It might be more suitable to find a professional doctor to treat eye diseases. After all, I'm just a chef. Meg retracted his gaze from the young man. The omniscient door had already given him feedback on the young man's condition. Darren, male, human, 10 years old, suffers from severe toxic cataracts. He can't see anything in his eyes. If this condition continues, he will lose his sight completely. This was obviously an illness that he couldn't treat. After all, he was only doing hairdressing now and improving the quality of his nightlife. This level of illness was indeed not easy to treat. Lucy, who was full of anticipation, was disappointed. As expected, it still wasn't possible. But Mr. Mack, I drank wine and ate roasted pig's eyes at your place yesterday. When I woke up this morning, my presbyopia of more than 10 years was cured. I don't believe you don't know how to treat eye diseases, Christopher said, shaking his head. Yes, Mr. Mack. My severe myopia was cured after eating your roasted pig's eyes. I really have to thank you properly. The young man who spoke earlier also looked at Meg gratefully. Because of his eyes, he had been in a lot of awkward situations all these years. His previous girlfriend broke up with him because he mistakenly held someone else's wife's hand on the street. There's such a thing? Meg looked at the two of them and was stunned again. Roasted pig's eyes could actually treat myopia and presbyopia? Using shape to complement shape? Damn, this is too exaggerated, isn't it? System, come out and explain. Meg frowned. He felt that things weren't that simple. The ingredients for roasted pig's eyes were selected from the fiery wild boar's eyes in the active volcano range of Nikola Tower. In order to adapt to the glaring flames of the volcano, the fiery wild boar's eyes are rich in amino acids that the human body needs, as well as a special element. The system has temporarily named it T-serum. It can effectively treat many eye diseases, and the effect will be even better after being roasted. The system's voice quickly sounded in Meg's mind. Book Guest House Reading Website. Chapter 1635. T-serum? Are you sure it's not a virus? Meg raised his eyebrows. He was surprised by the system again. He didn't expect the roasted pig's eyes to be able to treat eye diseases. Moreover, it had such an effect because the wild boar had been roasted beside an active volcano for a long time. What was even better was that the effect was even better after being heated and roasted. Wasn't this made for roasting? The system didn't say anything else, but Meg at least confirmed one thing. The roasted pig's eyes did have the effect of treating eye diseases. In that case, he might be able to add a plaque on his door saying Holy Doctor of Ophthalmology in the future. Mr. Mack, are you not sure yourself? Christopher looked at Meg and asked, a little worried. Many customers also looked at Meg. Not everyone had eye diseases, but older family members and friends would more or less be unable to see clearly. If the roasted pig's eyes were really effective, then of course, they would bring them here to try it. I'm a chef. Whether a dish has other effects depends on the person. I won't charge extra for it, and I can't guarantee the effect. If a dish can bring other benefits to the customer besides being delicious, I'll also feel happy, Meg said with a smile. It was a very formal reply, but it was indeed Meg's thoughts. Even if tofu pudding with beautifying effects was sold for 5,000 copper coins, there would still be countless rich women lining up to buy it. Buddha jumps over the wall with anti-hair loss and hair growth effects was sold for 100,000 copper coins, and there would be no lack of customers. Hair transplant costs more than that. However, Meg didn't want to make money. He always felt that he was a chef, and making the dishes delicious was what he should do. As for the special effects, they were given by the ingredients provided by the system. However, they were already included in the cost of the ingredients. He could only earn that much. So, can it be treated or not? Christopher frowned. He felt that Mr. Mack's words seemed to be an answer, but also seemed to be a non-answer. Please come in. He could try it. Meg looked at the young man with a smile. He was at such a beautiful age. His vision shouldn't be black. Furthermore, the young girl beside him was not in a good condition either. Long-term malnutrition had caused her various physical indicators to light up in red. If she did not improve, it was likely that she would collapse easily. All right. Christopher brought Lucy and Darren into the restaurant and found a seat. After welcoming the guests, Meg turned around and walked towards the kitchen. Boss, can roasted pig's eyes really cure that young man's eyes? It seems to be quite serious, Mia whispered to Meg with a pitiful look on her face. I can't guarantee that. We'll have to wait until he eats it. Meg shook his head. The system only said that it could effectively treat a variety of eye diseases, but it didn't say whether it could treat viral cataracts or whether it had an effect on the boy's eyes. Take the customer's order. The busy business hours have begun again, Meg said with a smile as he walked into the kitchen. Okay, Mia replied as she turned around and walked towards the table where Julian and Crassus were sitting. What a beautiful restaurant! Lucy sat down opposite Christopher with Darren. She looked around carefully, and her eyes shone brightly. This was the most beautiful restaurant she had ever seen in her life. Sister, are we in the restaurant now? Darren asked softly as he leaned closer to Lucy. Although he didn't say a word just now, he was listening attentively. However, he still didn't understand why he was in the restaurant for his treatment, and what was roasted pig's eyes. Was it roasting pig's eyes? Darren suddenly lost his sight when he was 8 years old. Before that, he would often go hunting with his grandfather. His grandfather was the best hunter in the village. He could shoot a wild boar's eye with an arrow. The wild boar that was shot would usually fall after running for a long distance. Even the villagers wouldn't eat the wild boar's eyes. Yes, Mr. Christopher brought us to a very beautiful restaurant. It's like Lucy pondered seriously for a while. She had never seen such a beautiful restaurant in her and Darren's world. She couldn't help but feel a little anxious. It's like a starry sky without clouds in summer. It's sparkling and comfortable, Christopher said with a smile. Starry sky. A smile appeared at the corner of Darren's mouth. The most beautiful image in the depths of his mind was the clear, starry sky. His grandfather had said that one of the stars shining in the dark sky was him. He would always be watching them from the sky. What would you like to order? Yabamiya walked to the left and asked with a smile. I'd like 10 skewers of roasted pig's eyes and 2 plates of Yangzhou fried rice. The 2 children should be hungry. Christopher flipped open the menu and glanced at the old scar between Lucy's brows. He said, and 2 plates of sweet tofu pudding, 1 plate of husband and wife lung slice, and a glass of rum. All right, please wait a moment. Mia nodded slightly and walked to the next table. What is husband and wife lung slice? Darren asked Lucy softly, feeling a little scared. I don't know either. Lucy shook her head. It sounded very scary. Could the owner of this restaurant be a strange person? Roasted pig's eyes, and now husband and wife lung slice. Seeing that the 2 children were a little scared, Christopher explained with a smile, the husband and wife lung slice is actually made from various parts of a cow. Mr. Mack is an interesting person, so he gave an interesting name. The 2 were enlightened when they heard that. Wild cows were wild animals that were not easy to hunt, but they could be eaten for a long time every time they caught one. Ever since their grandfather passed away, they hadn't eaten beef. When they heard about beef, their eyes shone. Let Darren eat a few skewers of roasted pig's eyes later. It might be effective for his eyes, Christopher said with a smile. Okay. Lucy nodded. Although roasted pig's eyes sounded a little scary, as long as it was effective for Darren's eyes, they had to give it a try. Darren pursed his lips slightly, but didn't say anything. Your Yangzhou fried rice. Not long after, Mia placed 2 plates of Yangzhou fried rice in front of Darren and Lucy. Wow! Lucy's eyes lit up. Fresh green onions were sprinkled on the colorful fried rice, and the fragrance of eggs mixed with a rich and refreshing aroma assailed her nostrils. The bowl of fried rice, which had both color and smell, looked as if it had been fried out of the rainbow in the sky. It was beautiful and tempting. It smells so good. Darren's nose twitched, and he couldn't help but lean forward. The fragrance wafted over. It was a fragrance that he had never smelled before, and he couldn't help but swallow his saliva. He really wanted to see with his own eyes what was in front of him and why it was emitting such an alluring fragrance. This is for you, Darren, and I can have one. Lucy quickly returned to her senses. She pushed her plate of fried rice in front of Christopher and picked up the spoon to feed Darren. Book Guest House Reading Website. Chapter 1636. I ordered this especially for you guys. You guys probably didn't have a proper meal today, so I ordered something else for myself too. Christopher pushed the fried rice back to Lucy and looked at her with pity. This little girl was too sensible. Judging from how skinny she was, she definitely hadn't eaten her fill for a long time. Thank you, Lucy said gratefully. Lucy looked at Christopher and thanked him gratefully. She scooped up a spoonful of fried rice and fed it to Darren as she said, Darren, open your mouth. This fried rice is as colorful as a rainbow. Rainbow? Darren's eyes lit up, and he opened his mouth expectantly. As the slightly hot fried rice entered his mouth, the wonderful taste was enveloped by the heat and blossomed in his mouth. As he chewed it carefully, the texture of the rice and the various ingredients was so delicate. All kinds of flavors melted in his mouth, just like a colorful flower blooming in his mouth, making him pleasantly surprised and immersed in it. These are eggs, and Darren could only discern the aroma of the eggs. Even the rice had an unfamiliar yet exceptionally sweet taste to it. The wonderful taste lingered in his mouth for a long time, and after swallowing, he felt warm and comfortable all over. Is it good? Lucy asked expectantly as she looked at Darren, whose eyes were narrowed in bliss. It's really delicious. Darren nodded and grabbed Lucy's hand. Big sister, try it too. It's really delicious. It's all right. I'll eat later. I'll feed you first. Lucy scooped another spoonful of fried rice for Darren with a smile. She hadn't seen such a smile on Darren's face for a long time, ever since her grandfather passed away. It seemed like he really liked this fried rice. Children at this age should be studying in chaos school. They shouldn't have to suffer like this, Christopher thought to himself as he looked at the pair of siblings opposite him. Lucy finished feeding Darren a plate of Yangzhou fried rice. After he expressed that he was full, she picked up her spoon and started eating. When the warm fried rice entered her mouth, a mist rose in front of her eyes. What a wonderful taste. It was just like her mother's cooking back then. The wild mushrooms in the mountains were fried with wild boar oil, and there was even some diced bacon occasionally. However, after so many years, his mother's appearance had gradually become blurry. That day, she and her father went hunting in the forest as usual, but they never came back. Back then, she was only 5 years old, and Darren had just learned how to walk. When she was young, her grandfather always said that they would come back with big game in the future. However, when her grandfather passed away and she gradually grew up, she already knew that they might never come back. In this world, she only had Darren as her younger brother. After silently finishing a plate of Yangzhou fried rice, Lucy's eyes were a little wet. She tilted her head and looked at Darren. If his eyes couldn't be cured, she would take care of him for the rest of his life. Your roasted pig's eyes, sliced beef and ox tongue in chili sauce and rum. Mia walked over with a tray and placed 2 plates and a glass of rum down gently. Is this roasted pig's eyes? Lucy's gaze was quickly attracted by the small mountain of meat skewers on the plate. The pig's eyes that were skewered together and roasted to a brown color were surprisingly not too scary. The surface of the skewers glowed with oil, and they emitted a tempting barbecued meat aroma. Roasted pig's eyes. Darren shrunk his neck. Although this thing might be able to cure his eyes, he was still a little afraid subconsciously. Those wild boars whose eyeballs were pierced by his grandfather had already started to appear in his mind. The scene was a little scary. Yes, this is roasted pig's eyes. Although it sounded a little scary, this is a very delicious dish. Furthermore, my eyes became better after eating this. Christopher nodded with a smile. However, this roasted pig's eyes has just been roasted, so it's very hot inside. You have to wait for a while before eating. Lucy nodded and looked at the roasted pig's eyes expectantly. Although they couldn't guarantee that Darren would recover after eating the roasted pig's eyes, at least this was the first time someone had given them a clear solution since they came to Chaos City. Christopher took a sip of rum and looked at the roasted pig's eyes expectantly as well. Everyone knew that he was the old accountant of Abbott's jewelry shop, but very few people knew that he actually owned 10% of the jewelry shop's shares. He wasn't short of money for a very long time, but some things couldn't be measured by money. For example, The 15-year-old rum brewed by Master Old Sim, or the simple effort of helping a blind child see the light again. Such happiness could not be compared with the 1 million pieces of jewelry sold in the jewelry shop in a day. About 3 minutes later, Christopher picked up a skewer of roasted pig's eyes and bit into one first. He tested it carefully with his teeth and tongue, and only bit into it after making sure that it was a temperature that his mouth could withstand. The warm liquid exploded in his mouth, and a wonderful feeling blossomed. His anticipation and anxiety were released at this moment, and it was a delightful feeling. Christopher swallowed the roasted pig's eye in his mouth and smiled at Lucy. "Come, let your brother have a taste of the game that he can't taste anywhere else. But you must be careful when you eat. Close your mouth when you bite the eyeball, and don't let the precious liquid spill out." Lucy picked up a skewer of roasted pig's eyes and passed it to Darren as she said, "Darren, open your mouth. Bite the first roasted pigs. I like how you eat candied haws in the morning." Darren answered and opened his mouth obediently. He waited for Lucy to feed the pig's eye into his mouth before closing his mouth and removing the pig's eye from a skewer. When the roasted pig's eye entered his mouth, what surprised Aaron wasn't the slippery and sticky texture. Instead, it tasted like roasted meat. The skin was slightly charred, but when he touched it with his teeth, it felt like a bulging fish bubble. It was very elastic. Yes, hold in your mouth, and then try to bite it open gently with your teeth. Remember, don't use too much force. Otherwise, you won't be able to control your mouth, and you won't be able to keep all the liquid in your mouth, Christopher reminded. Upon hearing that, Darren tried to bite the pig's eye with his teeth. However, the skin of the pig's eye was tough and elastic. It was like a mischievous little fellow scurrying around in his mouth. He was a little afraid that the eyeball would explode in his mouth, but he was also a little excited to see what it would feel like after it exploded. Would it really allow his eyes to see again? Amidst his anxiety and anticipation, the mischievous pig's eye was finally caught by his teeth and was bitten open. Pfff, the sound of the eyeball exploding rang out clearly in his mind. It made his soul tremble. However, before he could think about it carefully, the slightly hot liquid had already splattered around in his mouth. If not for Christopher's repeated reminders, he definitely wouldn't have been able to close his mouth in time. The slightly sticky and delicious soup grabbed all his attention. It was a little like bone soup, but it was countless times thicker and tastier than the bone soup he had tasted before. It stimulated his taste buds and brought him an incomparable pleasure. He felt as if his mind had been emptied out. His anxiety and anticipation received the most perfect feedback at this moment. After swallowing the liquid, he started to chew on the remaining things. Within the tough skin of the eyeball, there was something that was as crispy as bone. The more he chewed, the more fragrant the skin became. It also made him feel happy. Furthermore, what made Darren even more surprised was that a refreshing coolness gathered towards his eyes. His eyes that were shrouded in darkness actually showed signs of breaking through. "Big sister Anna, do you think that Big Brother's eyes will become better?" Amy sat behind the counter with Ugly Duckling in her arms as she looked in Darren's direction. "I think so. Uncle Meg is super awesome." Anna nodded with certainty. "Haha, I think so too." Chapter 16:37. "How is it, Darren? Do you feel anything?" Lucy asked as she looked at Darren expectantly. She felt as if her heart had leaped in her throat. Christopher was also staring at Darren. Although he didn't expect much from Darren, who had just eaten a roasted pig's eye, he still wanted to know if there was any obvious effect. Darren tried to feel it seriously and shook his head. I feel a cooling sensation in my eyes, but I still can't see." "You still can't see?" Lucy was slightly disappointed. "Don't be anxious. You just ate one. Come, eat the remaining 9 skewers. My eyes only recovered after I went home to sleep. No matter how good the medicine is, it still needs time to take effect," Christopher said with a smile. "Also, there's a cooling sensation in your eyes, which means that the roasted pig's eyes are working. After this meal, let's have another meal tonight." Lucy and Darren nodded at the same time with smiles on their faces. Lucy carefully fed the remaining roasted pigs eyes to Darren. With the experience from the first one, Darren caught the pig's eye very quickly and chewed on it happily. Is it really that delicious? Lucy looked on doubtfully from the side. She could clearly hear the sound of the eyeball being crushed by Darren. She could even imagine the terrifying scene of the liquid splattering everywhere in his mouth. However, Darren looked as if he was enjoying the process very much. Not long after, Darren finished all 9 skewers of roasted pig's eyes. Burp. Darren burped. After eating a plate of Yangzhou fried rice and so many roasted pig's eyes, he felt a little bloated. What surprised him was that wisps of coldness gathered in his eyes, as if countless rays of light were trying to pierce through the layers of darkness. His vision, which was originally as dark as ink, seemed to have an additional layer of faintly discernible white. However, the intertwining of black and white was like a whirlpool, making him feel a little dizzy. His eyes started to want to close subconsciously. He felt like he could fall asleep immediately if he was given a bed. Darren, are you all right? Lucy asked concernedly when she noticed Darren's abnormality. Sister, I'm fine. I just feel very sleepy. I want to sleep. Darren shook his head and yawned as he fell sideways towards Lucy. Darren! Darren! Lucy hurriedly reached out to support Darren as she called out in a panic. He's fine. He's just asleep. Just bring him back to sleep until he wakes up. Elizabeth happened to walk to the side and reached out to tap Darren's forehead gently as she looked at Lucy. But Lucy still couldn't understand why Darren would suddenly fall asleep, as if he had fainted. Don't worry. The roasted pig's eyes must have taken effect. Look at how soundly he's sleeping. His breathing is even. He doesn't look like there's any problem at all. He finished the rest of the rum in his hand and got up to help Lucy carry Darren. As they walked toward the door, he said, Let's go back to my house first and let this child have a good sleep. Then I'll have to trouble you. Lucy said gratefully. She carried most of Darren's weight on her shoulders and slowly walked towards the door. After they got into the horse-drawn carriage, Lucy laid Darren flat on the seat. She listened to his soft snoring, and it was indeed no different from when he was sleeping normally. Only then did she feel relieved. She looked at Christopher, who was sitting at the side, and asked, Old sir, will Darren's eyes recover after he wakes up? I can't guarantee it now, but judging from his reaction, the roasted pig's eyes should still be effective. Christopher shook his head as he looked at Darren, who was sleeping peacefully. He also hoped that this young boy's eyes would be able to see again after he woke up. Oh yes, old sir, I'll give you the money for our meal and the roasted pig's eyes now. Lucy took out a money pouch that was sewn from rags and poured out a pile of coins. Most of them were copper coins, with over 10 silver coins and 2 gold coins mixed in. This is the money that the villagers gathered for Darren's treatment. I don't know if it's enough. If it's not enough, I will find a job in Chaos City in the next few days and work to return the money to you. Lucy held all the coins with both hands and looked at Christopher with clear eyes. Christopher looked at Lucy's clear eyes. This should be the first time this young lady left the village to bring her younger brother to Chaos City. After pondering for a while, he took a gold coin and a copper coin from Lucy's hands and smilingly said, These are enough. That's all. Lucy was a little uncertain. She couldn't read, so she didn't know what was written on the menu. She didn't need to use money in the village, so she didn't have much of a concept of money. However, she could tell that this restaurant definitely cost a lot. Yes, Christopher nodded. Thank you. Lucy put the rest of the money back into the money pouch and kept it carefully with her. These were all gathered by the villagers, so she had to return them when she got back. Along the way, Christopher asked about Lucy and Darren briefly and found out that the 2 children had already become orphans. He couldn't help but pity them even more. The horse-drawn carriage stopped, and Christopher stood up. Let's alight. We've reached my house. Bring Darren to have a rest. You should have a good rest, too. The coachman helped Darren off the carriage, and the butler brought them straight to the guest room. In a luxurious manner, there were rows upon rows of buildings. Lucy followed behind the butler and scanned her surroundings carefully. She didn't expect Mr. Christopher's house to be so spacious. There were even more houses than in the village. I heard from them that you brought 2 children home. What's the matter? The old lady asked as soon as Christopher entered the room. She came forward to greet him. Christopher pulled the old mistress into the house and said, I met 2 poor children on my way back from the goldsmith shop this morning. It's really not easy at such a young age. The old mistress couldn't help but sigh after hearing Christopher's words. She wiped the tears from the corner of her eyes and was about to stand up. I'll go take a look at those 2 children. Let them rest first. They probably didn't have much rest on the way here. Christopher pulled her back and shook his head with a smile. However, I'm afraid Dorothy won't be happy if you let that little girl wear her clothes. You know her temper, the old mistress said worriedly. That temper of hers is all because of you 2. I'm still the one in charge in this family now. No matter which generation it is, they have to be educated. Otherwise, even if they have some money, they won't last long, Christopher said with a straight face. The old mistress didn't dare to say anything else. Book Guest House Reading Website. Chapter 1638. Lucy had fallen asleep beside Darren's bed. Although her position wasn't very comfortable, lying on the warm and comfortable blanket was still the best sleep she had in the past few days. Even her shoulder that had been scratched by the vines seemed to have recovered quite a bit, and the pain had mostly disappeared. Sister. Lucy heard Darren's voice while she was in a daze. Darren. Lucy looked up immediately and met Darren's eyes. Most of the white in Darren's deathly white eyes had actually disappeared, and they regained some of their black color and clarity. His expression was also one of surprise and surprise. I can see you. I can see sister, Darren said in surprise as tears glistened in his eyes. Although his vision was still a little blurry, the heavy black fog had already disappeared, and only a thin layer of fog was left. However, he could already see Lucy, who was close to the bed. It was a little blurry, but at least he could see her clearly. Really? You can really see me? Darren, is what you said true? Lucy stood up immediately and grabbed Darren's shoulders agitatedly. I can see sister. Sister has become prettier, Darren said with a nod as a smile appeared on his face. That's great. That's really great. Lucy hugged Darren tightly as her tears fell uncontrollably. She sobbed. If Grandpa knew, he would definitely be very happy. He will know. Grandpa said that he has become a star. I will tell him tonight, Darren said with a choked voice. The siblings hugged each other and cried. Knock, knock. There was a knock on the door, followed by Christopher's voice. Are you awake? We're going out to eat. It's Mr. Christopher. Lucy hurriedly wiped the tears off her face and then looked at Darren seriously. We must thank Mr. Christopher and the owner of that restaurant properly later. They were the ones who cured your eyes. Darren nodded obediently. Let's go out. Lucy stood up from the bed and watched as Darren put on his clothes. He got off the bed clumsily and put on his shoes. She then held his hand and walked towards the door. Grandpa, did you really give my custom-made clothes and shoes to someone else? Beside Christopher, a young girl draped in a white mink fur cloak asked with a frown, clearly a little unhappy. Dorothy, I've already told you that I've given the clothes and shoes to those who need them. It's my fault for not discussing this with you. I'll get the tailor to make another set for you, but if you don't behave properly later, you'll only be able to wear old clothes next year. Christopher looked at the young lady beside him. You should know that this lady very graciously rejected your cloak. This is my favorite mink cloak. I've been looking forward to it for a whole year. It seems that the lady is not bad. Dorothy raised her brow when she heard that. Her wardrobe was almost full of normal clothes and shoes, and that old-fashioned tailor would make the same clothes and shoes every year. She didn't even have to guess to know that it would be a bright red dress and bright red shoes. Actually, she had been eyeing Suede's new products recently. She had already used her pocket money to order the latest down jacket. It was a handsome black down jacket, and it would arrive in 3 days. This was her first time snatching Suede's new products. She was simply too blissful. Hence, when Grandpa said that he had given her custom-made clothes to someone else, she was only a little unhappy that her things were disposed of without her consent, but she didn't feel too bad. On the contrary, if the other party was really someone who needed it, She actually didn't mind giving the clothes and shoes that she didn't really like to them. Grandpa said that they were a pair of siblings who came to Chaos City from a remote mountain village to seek treatment. It did sound quite pitiful. The door opened very quickly. Lucy walked out, holding Darren's hand. Dorothy looked at Lucy. She was wearing a bright red and green dress and a pair of red leather boots. They fit her rather well, just as she had expected. The girl should be about the same age as her. She had delicate features, but looked very frail. Her face was pale, and her lips were a little pale. Her bluish-yellow hair was tied messily behind her head, and her bright eyes seemed to be a little red from crying just now. Just one look was all it took for Dorothy's unhappiness to disappear completely. This girl did look like she really needed help. It was just a set of clothes and a pair of shoes. Moreover, she even gave her the cloak. Dorothy started to like Lucy a lot more. Lucy also noticed Dorothy, who was standing beside Christopher. They were about the same age, so she should be the granddaughter that Mr. Christopher was talking about. Dorothy was very beautiful. She had a head of soft golden hair, snow-white skin, and a slender neck. She was as noble and elegant as a white swan. She was wearing a blue dress, and the white cloak she was wearing looked a little familiar. It seemed to be the one that Mr. Christopher wanted to give her this afternoon. Should the clothes and shoes I'm wearing belong to her? Lucy suddenly felt a little embarrassed. It was as if she had snatched someone else's beloved things. She couldn't wait to take off the clothes and return them to her. Wow, look at Darren's eyes. The white color has faded a lot. Can you see things now? Christopher asked excitedly. I can see things that are close to me now. Darren nodded and bowed deeply to Christopher. He looked up at him and gratefully said, "Thank you, Mr. Christopher. You're welcome. It's great to be able to help you." Christopher helped Darren up and smilingly said, "It seems like the roasted pig's eyes are very effective for your eyes. Let's set off now. We'll eat 10 more skewers of roasted pig's eyes tonight. Maybe your eyes will be completely healed tomorrow morning. Thank you so much." Lucy also looked at Christopher gratefully. "You're welcome." Christopher waved his hand and smilingly introduced, "I forgot to introduce her to you. This is my granddaughter, Dorothy. She's the same age as you, Lucy. The four of us will go to Amy's for dinner tonight." "Hello, I'm Dorothy." Dorothy went forward and greeted them with a smile. "Hello, I'm Lucy," Lucy said shyly. She grabbed the hem of her dress nervously. After hesitating for a while, she mustered her courage and said, "I'll return the clothes to you as soon as possible. I'll wash my clothes immediately, and then—" "Oh, that's okay. I think it looks better on you than on me." Dorothy smiled at Lucy and extended her hand. "Let's be friends. In that case, you can wear my clothes, and I can wear yours." Lucy looked at Dorothy's hand, and then at the clean and gentle smile on her face. She hesitated for a while, but still extended her hand. "Let's go. I'll get you a coat. It's a little cold to only wear a dress." Dorothy grabbed Lucy's hand and walked out. This child. Christopher looked at Dorothy's back view and shook his head with a smile. He also held Darren's little hand and said, "Let's go. We'll wait for them in the carriage." Bookhouse Reading Website. Chapter 1639. Jason, I specially asked 2 customers to postpone their treatment until tomorrow. Tell me, what's so urgent that you're looking for me for? Adolphus asked the middle-aged man with a full beard sitting opposite him in the horse-drawn carriage. Jason sighed and softly said, "Yes, our Dr. Adolphus is the best ophthalmologist in Chaos City. He's a super busy man. Even if this good brother of mine wants to ask you out for a drink, he has to inform you half a month in advance, and he has to undergo a strict interrogation once he gets in the carriage." "You just looking for me for a drink?" Adolphus frowned. "Why didn't you say so earlier? I'll come out with you after I see those 2 patients. The last 2 patients' conditions are not urgent at all. I've already asked around for you. It's fine to come back tomorrow." Jason waved his hand nonchalantly and said, "However, if we're late, we won't be able to have a drink. Are there any pubs that won't let you in?" Adolphus was in disbelief. He knew that this brother of his who grew up with him came from a wealthy family. He often spent a lot of money in pubs and was the boss' favorite customer. Jason chuckled and said, don't doubt me. If we're late, they really won't let you in. However, it's not that they won't let you in. It's just that there are too many people in front of you, and you won't even get your turn. There's still such a popular pub in Chaos City. Look, your sister-in-law is always taking care of you. She even arranges your meals clearly. You don't know anything about it. Jason looked at Adolphus with disdain. It's not a pub. It's a restaurant, Mamie's. It's the most popular and reputable restaurant in Chaos City now. You haven't heard of it, right? Mamie's? Never heard of it. Adolphus shook his head. He then looked at Jason suspiciously and said, "But didn't you say that those who drink in restaurants are fools and that they can only enjoy themselves in pubs?" Ahem, that's what I said when I was young and frivolous. Who knew that there would be a restaurant like Mamie's in this world? Jason coughed dryly to cover up his embarrassment and then said, "You don't know how delicious Mr. Mac's food is. That spicy grilled fish is the best dish to go with wine, and the beef kebab is also invincible. Of course, the best thing about them is their beer. It's cold and refreshing, and it makes all the pubs in Chaos City look like trash. Not to mention the 15-year-old rum that their family recently launched. Do you know who made it? Old Sim, the father of rum. Oh my God, 1 cup only costs 1,000 copper coins. Drinking 1 cup is 1 cup less. A 15-year-old rum brewed by Old Sim? Adolphus's eyes lit up when he heard that. Jason had bought a bottle of Old Sim's 3-year-old rum at an auction 2 years ago at a high price, and he brought it to his place to drink. He still couldn't forget the taste until now. He didn't expect there to be a restaurant selling a 15-year-old rum. It was simply unimaginable. Yes, I don't know where Mr. Mac got it from. Ever since Old Sim passed away, it's not easy to find this kind of rum, even in the Falk tribe. Jason nodded. He was also puzzled. Seems like the owner of this restaurant is not simple, Adolphus said thoughtfully. He's definitely not simple. Mr. Mac is simply a god. Not only is his food delicious, but he also knows how to treat illnesses. Oh, he's a doctor? Adolphus was shocked. You can't really call him a doctor, but according to what I heard, a woman's skin would become smooth and tender after eating his tofu pudding. It also has a very good scar-removing effect. Even some of the old mercenaries, after eating tofu pudding for half a month, their old scars had all disappeared, and their skin had become white and tender. In order not to be laughed at by the newbies, some people even started to draw scars on themselves recently. 2 days ago, I even overheard a few mercenaries at the next table exchanging their experiences while eating tofu pudding, Jason said with a chuckle. There's such a thing? Adolphus frowned. It sounded like a scammer on the streets who found actors to scam people. As a doctor, he hated such people the most. Not only did they cheat the patients of their money, but they also delayed the patient's treatment time. Not only does it whiten and beautify the skin, Mamie's also has a magical soup. Buddha jumps over the wall. As long as you drink that soup, even if you're bald for life, you can still grow hair back. 1 serving only costs 10,000 copper coins. Jason was talking excitedly. He suddenly slapped his head as he looked at Adolphus and said, "Oh yes, Mr. Mac just launched a new dish yesterday. Roasted pig's eyes. This afternoon, a few customers said that their eye diseases were cured after eating it. This afternoon, an old man even brought a young boy with an eye disease here to eat it. I wonder if it's effective. If it's really effective, I'm afraid Mr. Mac will start to snatch your business." Adolphus' eyes widened when he heard that, and he raised his voice as he said, "Are you talking about a 10-year-old boy who has an older sister who is 12 or 13 years old? How did you know? They came to look for you?" Jason was a little surprised. That boy's eye disease is very strange, and it's very serious, so I didn't dare to treat him carelessly. I could only ask them to find someone else, Adolphus said with a sullen face. But I didn't expect that old man to bring them to the restaurant to treat their illness. It's really ridiculous. Such a scam could ruin a child's eyes and future. It's not as serious as you say, right? Mr. Mac is a good person. He wouldn't do something like scam. When Jason saw Adolphus' serious expression, he stopped laughing and said uncertainly, "You're not thinking of creating trouble, are you? If he uses the gimmick of delicacies to deceive patients, I'll definitely destroy this restaurant," Adolphus said with a firm expression. "Good boy, this is a restaurant that even the Castellan occasionally visits. How can it be a scam? You have to calm down." Jason was a little uneasy. If he can even deceive a blind child, even if the Castellan supports him, it can't hide his nature as a scammer. Adolphus looked at Jason, and his tone was a little calmer. "Don't worry, I'm not one of those hotheads. I'll act according to the situation." "That's good. But let me remind you first. These so-called curative effects were discovered by the customers by accident. Mr. Mack has never, and completely doesn't need to, use this as a selling point of the restaurant. He also didn't increase the price because of this. We're here to drink 15-year-old rum today. Remember that, okay?" Jason reminded him with a serious face. "Okay," Adolphus responded casually. He was already determined in his heart that if he met that boy again later, he must take him away. He thought about it for the whole day, and perhaps there were a few ways to try. Even if it couldn't completely restore his vision, it could at least control the deteriorating condition of his eyes. No pop-up window. Chapter 1640. Jason and the rest were not late, but there was still a long line in front of Amy's. "How is it? I didn't lie to you, did I? Amy's has such a long line every day. If you're late, you won't be able to eat it." Jason jumped off the horse-drawn carriage and smiled at the surprised Adolphus. "These are all people here to see the doctor?" Adolphus was indeed very surprised. Was the scale of this restaurant scam already so exaggerated? And it was right under the eyes of the city lord's castle and right next to the Bataille prison. "What are you thinking? Of course, they're all here to eat." Jason didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He suddenly regretted talking too much on the way here. He urged, "Let's go. Let's hurry to the back of the line. According to the current number of people, we won't be able to eat the tofu pudding, so we don't have to worry about which flavor to eat." Adolphus followed Jason to the back of the line while sizing up the guests in the line. Humans, elves, demons, orcs. Almost every race could be seen, which made him feel even more depressed. It seemed that the humans were not the only ones who had fallen into the trap. However, what surprised him was that the mental state of these customers seemed to be the same as those gloomy patients he usually saw. As an old doctor who had been practicing medicine for more than 30 years, he boasted that he could tell a person's physical condition from their mental state. Overall, these people did not seem like regular patients. Furthermore, judging from their clothes, many of them should be considered as the upper class of Chaos City. They were not cheap, so how could they be deceived by such low-level means? Could it be that what Jason said was true? However, when he walked past them, he heard that those people seemed to be divided into two factions, arguing over whether the sweet tofu pudding was better or the savory tofu pudding was better. He was even more certain that this was a scam restaurant. This boss even brainwashed these customers. This is too much, too scary. Standing in a line, Adolphus looked left and right with a heavy heart, but he still couldn't find the siblings. He didn't know if they had realized that they had been scammed. Not long after, the restaurant's door opened, and a young man with a light mustache stood at the door with a group of beautiful waitresses to welcome the customers into the restaurant. "This is the boss. He looks very young. He doesn't look like an old chef, nor does he look like an old doctor. How can he be so good at both?" Adolphus looked at Meg, feeling more and more confused. However, this young boss seemed to have a good relationship with the customers. He was able to call out the names of most of the customers and greet them familiarly. He was kind and amiable throughout the whole process, which made people have a good impression of him. "Mr. Mack, is there still a rum bar today?" Jason looked at Meg with a familiar smile. "We don't have much left. Drink and cherish it." Meg laughed. He wasn't lying. Of the 10 barrels of rum he took out, there were only 4 barrels left. It was estimated that they would run out tomorrow or the day after. Then they would have to wait for Hannah's distillery to be completed and start brewing new rum. So fast, Jason and the surrounding customers who came for the rum all sighed. However, after thinking about it, they felt a little lucky. At least they had drunk a few glasses these days. Such good wine was hard to come by. Jason took Adolphus to find a place to sit at the door and shared a table with 2 of his drinking buddies. Jason chatted with them for a while. Seeing that Adolphus's face was still serious, he didn't introduce them to each other. When the dishes were served, they would naturally become familiar with each other after drinking a few more glasses. I don't see them coming, Adolphus said softly. Maybe they have been cured, so they don't have to come, Jason replied casually. He hoped that the siblings would not come tonight. He was really worried that his brother, who had been serious since childhood, would take this matter seriously. If he was blacklisted by the restaurant, he would have nowhere to cry. Wow, what a beautiful restaurant. Grandpa, why didn't you bring me here earlier? Umph. Just then, a clear voice sounded at the door. Adolphus looked back subconsciously and saw a group of 4 people walking in from the door. The leader was a young girl wearing a white mink cloak. That mink cloak was obviously expensive, but that didn't stop Adolphus's gaze. He looked directly at the old man who came in with the young girl, and his eyes widened a little. This was the old man who took the siblings away in the morning, and the people who came in with them were the siblings who came to seek medical treatment. However, the 2 of them had changed their tattered clothes into new ones, and their messy hair had been tidied up, so they didn't look as pitiful as before. What really shocked Adolphus was the young man's eyes. His eyes, which were originally covered with an unknown white substance, had regained some of their original color, as if a layer of white had been scraped off. And he walked over by himself. Although his steps weren't fast, he was obviously in a state where he could see things. How? How is this possible? Adolphus was so shocked that he almost stood up from his chair. He believed that he didn't recognize the wrong person. Even if the young man changed his clothes, the young man was still the same young man. The white in his eyes that hadn't faded away proved that point. But what was going on? It had only been half a day, and his eyes were almost blind. How did they recover so obviously? Isn't this that young man? He can see. Jason couldn't help but exclaim when he noticed the young man who came in. Many customers who were waiting for their dishes to be served looked towards the door when they heard that. Their gazes landed on Lucy and Darren. When they saw Darren walk in by himself, and his eyes that had regained some clarity, it instantly caused a small commotion. Christopher had brought this child to seek medical treatment this afternoon, and it had attracted a lot of attention. Everyone watched him finish 10 skewers of roasted pig's eyes, and they were all looking forward to seeing if his eyes could recover. They didn't expect him to be able to walk by himself tonight. That's great. Mr. Mack has done a good deed again. Can roasted pig's eyes really treat eye diseases? This is real, isn't it? It's not just a treatment. It's a miracle medicine. I'll bring my 7th uncle here to eat roasted pig's eyes tomorrow. He couldn't see for the past few days, and he kept calling me Little Six every day. The customers discussed softly and were sincerely happy that the child's eyes had recovered. Young man, can your eyes really see? Adolphus stood up to stop Darren and asked in surprise and doubt. Book Guest House Reading Website. Chapter 1641. Darren looked at Adolphus and pondered for a while. His eyes lit up, and he asked, "You're the doctor from this morning?" "Yes." Adolphus nodded. From the way Darren's eyes focused, he could indeed see. Darren nodded with a shy smile. "Yes, my eyes can see some things now. Although it's still a little blurry, I can really see. I'm sorry, doctor. We still have to trouble you to look after our sleigh. We forgot to collect it this afternoon," Lucy said to Adolphus with a look of embarrassment. Lucy looked at Adolphus embarrassedly. She had forgotten about the sleigh in the afternoon because Darren had fallen asleep in a hurry. "It's all right. I've kept the sleigh for you." Adolphus waved his hand. What was important now was not the sleigh, but this young man's eyes. How did he recover his vision in just one afternoon? Even if he only recovered part of his vision, it was still unbelievable. "Pardon me for asking, but which doctor did you find to treat your eyes?" Adolphus asked Darren. He already had a guess, but he found it hard to believe. "I didn't find a doctor. Mr. Christopher brought me to this restaurant to eat the roasted pig's eyes. After that, I went back to sleep, and I could see when I woke up." Darren shook his head. He looked past the crowd and towards the kitchen. He saw Meg, who was busy in the kitchen. Although his vision was a little blurry, his eyes still lit up immediately. It's him. He's the one who cured my eyes. Indeed, it's roasted pig's eyes. Adolphus suddenly felt his throat dry up. There was an indescribable feeling in his heart. Half of it was because he was happy that this young man's eyes could see again after being cured, and the other half was because he couldn't really explain it himself. As an ophthalmologist with 30 years of experience and known as the best ophthalmologist in Chaos City, he had his own pride. However, an eye disease that even he couldn't do anything about was cured by a restaurant owner with just 10 skewers of roasted pig's eyes. This feeling of defeat was even more unacceptable than being defeated by other doctors. Isn't that Dr. Adolphus? Yes, he's the best ophthalmologist in Chaos City. He has cured countless patients with eye diseases. I didn't expect him to come to Amy's for a meal too. Many people recognized Adolphus, and some familiar people greeted him. However, not many people noticed the disappointment on his face. Dr. Adolphus. Christopher turned around and greeted Adolphus with a smile. Just as he was about to explain Darren's situation to him, he saw that Adolphus's expression was a little unnatural. He thought about it and understood. Instead, he said, "What a coincidence. You're here for dinner too. Let's talk next time. I'll bring the children to sit at the side first. There aren't many seats left." "All right, talk to you later." Adolphus glanced at Christopher gratefully before returning to his seat. "You can rest assured now. This child's eyes will definitely recover. Don't worry about it. Mr. Mack is a good man. Of course, he's also a genius." Jason saw that Adolphus's expression was a little unnatural, so he smiled and patted him on the shoulder to comfort him. "You know that I'm not the kind of person who is jealous of other people's talents," Adolphus said seriously. "If you were that kind of person, wouldn't I have been chopped to death by you 100 times? You don't have that kind of plaything." Adolphus rolled his eyes with a smile. All right. Let's not talk about this. Let's talk about this room. How many glasses do you want to drink tonight?" Mr. Mack never lies. If he said there's not much left, then it's definitely not going to be sold for a few days. 1 glass is 1 glass less. Jason changed the topic. "Then I'll definitely have a few more glasses. Don't blame me for not reminding you. The strength of this 15-year-old rum is no joke. With my alcohol tolerance, I'll be drunk after 2.5 glasses. Furthermore, I'll have to be carried out of the house." Adolphus thought seriously for a while and said, "Then I'll have 1.5 glasses." "All right, then we'll have 4 glasses in total." Jason nodded. He opened the menu and pushed it in front of Adolphus. "Come, order the dishes that go with the wine." Adolphus looked at the menu. It was painted with vivid colors that resembled real dishes. His gaze quickly landed on the roasted pig's eyes. Roasted pig's eyes, 300 copper coins per skewer. 300 copper coins could buy a huge pig trotter in Chaos City, and it was enough for a whole family to have 2 meals. 300 copper coins for a skewer of roasted pig's eyes was not cheap. However, since this roasted pig's eyes could treat such a serious eye disease, it was not too much to sell it for 300 copper coins a skewer. He had seen many patients who were willing to fork out all their wealth in exchange for their sight. If their eye disease could be treated by eating roasted pig's eyes, they would be willing to pay 3,000 copper coins or even 30,000 copper coins, let alone 300 copper coins a skewer. "You want to try this?" Jason saw that Adolphus's gaze was fixed on the roasted pig's eyes. He smiled and said, "I saw them having a good time yesterday. Why don't we order a few skewers to try today? Can normal customers who don't have eye diseases order it too?" Adolphus asked uncertainly. Of course, Mr. Mack didn't say that this could treat eye diseases in the first place. It was the customers who discovered it today, just like those ladies who came to eat tofu pudding because they wanted to become more beautiful. They might not be able to compete with those tough men in front of them. After all, tofu pudding is so delicious that it doesn't matter if it's male or female. Just the taste alone is already worth it. It doesn't matter if it has any beautifying effects, Jason said with a smile. A snack that costs 200 copper coins per serving is worth it too. Adolphus glanced at the price of the tofu pudding. "You can ask the waiter if we still have a chance to eat tofu pudding later. I strongly recommend that you eat sweet tofu pudding. It's even better than eating candy. Jason recommended seriously. Yabamiya happened to turn to their table and asked with a smile, "Hello, what would you like to order?" "We'd like 4 glasses of rum, 2 skewers of roasted pig's eyes, and a medium spicy grilled fish." Jason ordered quickly and then asked, "Oh, yes. Is there any tofu pudding today?" "Yes, but there aren't many tofu puddings left for both flavors." Mia nodded with a smile. "That's great. We'd like 2 sweet tofu puddings." Jason made the decision for Adolphus without hesitation. He then looked at him and asked, "Is there anything else you want to eat?" "That's all for now." Adolphus glanced at the spicy grilled fish that Jason ordered. This amount should be enough for the 2 of them, so he closed the menu casually. Bookhouse reading website. Chapter 1642. Darren sized up the restaurant with curiosity in his eyes. Just like what his sister had said, this restaurant was very beautiful. It was like a starry sky. The bright and comfortable lights and the beautiful tables and chairs were all novel to him. However, the way the various races sat together in the restaurant made him a little fearful. For example, there were a few demons at the table next to him whose bodies were covered with crisscrossing lava cracks. Although they were smiling kindly at him, he still felt tremendous pressure because he had never seen demons since he was young. This restaurant is so interesting. There are actually customers from all races, just like our school, Dorothy said excitedly as she looked around. She often went to high-end restaurants with her parents or grandfather, but most restaurants would have a special distinction. Some were only open to humans and elves, while others were only open to orcs and dwarves. There were very few restaurants that accommodated all races, let alone elves and demons. However, everything was realized here. All the races sat together harmoniously, especially in the designated hot pot area next door. There was actually a table with customers from all the races squeezed together. If not for the 9-grid hot pot in the middle, it would look like a meeting of all the races had started in advance. Yes, this is Boss's true ability. Christopher also nodded with a smile. He was really convinced today. Even Adolphus couldn't do anything about the eye disease, but after eating Mr. Mac's 10 portions of roasted pig's eyes, he could actually see again. It would be a pity if he didn't open a clinic with this ability. Christopher opened the menu and placed it in the middle of the table with a smile and said, "Then let's order 10 portions of roasted pig's eyes for Darren later. You guys can order whatever you want to eat. I heard there are many delicious things on the menu." Lucy and Darren remained reserved and didn't move. Dorothy generously chose a few dishes that she thought looked good and then turned the menu to Lucy and Darren. She smiled and said, "I've chosen. You guys can order a few more. Order whatever you want. Don't stand on ceremony. Grandpa will pay the bill anyway. We don't need it. You've already ordered a lot. It should be enough for us. It would be a waste to order more." Lucy shook her head slightly. "It's okay. Maybe there's something bad in the food I ordered," Dorothy said nonchalantly. Christopher looked at Dorothy sternly and said, "Dorothy, it's not good to waste food. Furthermore, this restaurant is different from other restaurants. If you waste food, you'll be blacklisted and you won't be allowed to enter again." "Oh," Dorothy shrugged and said innocently, "Grandpa, I also cherish food, okay? I always finish all the food at school. The ones who don't cherish food are the chefs who make terrible food. If the food is so bad that the customers can't finish it, then they're the ones who are wasting food." Christopher thought about it seriously and said, "You do have a point. No matter if it tastes good or not, we should finish the food, right?" Lucy said softly but firmly. "Yes." Darren nodded in agreement. During the cold winters in the village, if the harvest wasn't good, they would even eat tree roots. As long as there was food, it was enough. It didn't matter if it tasted good or not. What was important was whether it could fill their stomachs and support them through the cold nights. Christopher and Dorothy looked at Lucy and her brother in a daze for a while. They suddenly realized something and nodded at the same time. "Yes, it's not good to waste food. Let's order as much as we can eat." Dorothy nodded. Then, she flipped open the menu again and removed some of the food she ordered. She passed the menu to Lucy and Darren with a smile and said, "Now, you can order 2 more dishes that don't look too full. Sister, I still want to eat the fragrant fried rice from lunch. Is that okay?" Darren asked softly as he looked at Lucy. He missed the taste of the Yangzhou fried rice. He still wanted to see that beautiful, rainbow-like dish with his own eyes. Then we'll just have the fried rice from lunch. Lucy pushed the menu back to Dorothy. In that case, should we try this ice cream? It looks like a pretty good dessert, Dorothy said as she pointed at the ice cream on the menu. The three of you can have one each. I saw other children eating ice cream the last time, and they said it was pretty good. Christopher decided for them with a smile. Yabamiya happened to turn to their table, so Christopher ordered the children's food, as well as the rum and beef kebabs that he wanted. Please wait a moment. Yabamiya looked at Darren's eyes and turned to walk into the kitchen with a smile. The service staff here is so pretty. All of them are super pretty, Dorothy said softly as she looked at Christopher. Dorothy said softly as she looked at Christopher with some resentment. Grandpa, you actually hid such a good restaurant and didn't bring me here. You've really disappointed me. Aren't I bringing you here? Christopher didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Boss, that young man can really see. The roasted pig's eyes are amazing, Mia said in surprise when she entered the kitchen and saw Meg, who was roasting the pig's eyes seriously. It's pretty good. Meg also had a smile on his face. He had already seen Darren's medical report when they came in. He smiled and said the toxicity of the toxic cataract has mostly subsided. Next, he just needs to take 10 skewers of roasted pig's eyes for a course of treatment. He'll be completely healed after about 3 courses. That's not right. Why does it feel like I'm prescribing medicine? Boss, why are you so familiar with this? Yabamiya was also surprised. As a qualified chef, I should have a deep understanding of the food I'm cooking. Only then can I prevent myself from prescribing the wrong medicine. No, I mean serving the wrong dish, Meg explained calmly. Oh, Yabamiya nodded thoughtfully. She didn't really understand what Meg was talking about, either. Anyway, it was fine as long as the boss was awesome. By the way, did Amy go out to play by herself? Mia glanced at the counter, but didn't see Amy. She brought Hannah to play with Jessica. Meg smiled. Hannah had been drawing in the restaurant behind closed doors for a few days, and she finally finished it. She slept for the whole day and only woke up in the evening. Seeing how groggy she was, Meg got Amy to bring her out for a walk. Also, Anna asked me when Shirley would be back yesterday. Can you confirm where she went? Mia asked Meg in a low voice as she approached him. Meg glanced at Anna, who was holding the cash box in a daze, and nodded slightly. She's trapped in the wind forest. I'm trying to confirm her location. I'll bring her back when I find her. Chapter 1643. Are these roasted pig's eyes? Adolphus looked at the plate in front of him seriously. There were 2 skewers of roasted meat that gave off a tantalizing aroma. They were indeed pig's eyes that had been dug out from the roots. However, after roasting them, they didn't look as scary as he had imagined. Under the oily brown and slightly charred skin, the eyeballs could still be seen. There were only 5 pig's eyes on each skewer, and they were strung together with bamboo sticks. Although the aroma was tantalizing, the roasted pig's eyes looked ordinary. There was nothing special about it, but it could actually treat the eye disease that had been troubling him. Let me see what's so special about this roasted pig's eyes. Adolphus reached out and picked up a skewer of roasted pig's eyes, preparing to taste it himself. Don't rush. My predecessor's experience tells me that you can't rush when eating roasted pig's eyes. You have to wait for them to cool down a little. Before Jason could finish his reminder, Adolphus had already bitten open the first roasted pig's eye. PFFF, the sound of the eyeball exploding was accompanied by the boiling liquid that splattered everywhere. Luckily, Jason was prepared and raised the plate in his hand, barely blocking the liquid that was splattering towards him. However, Adolphus wasn't prepared at all, and he directly received the baptism of the boiling hot liquid. With his understanding of eyes, Adolphus easily bit open the pig's eye. However, he didn't expect such a boiling liquid to be hidden under such a simple and calm appearance. His taste buds almost lost their effect at that moment. The boiling sensation made him want to spit out everything in his mouth. However, the burden of being a semi-public idol made him hold himself back. The boiling sensation gradually dissipated. Just as he was thinking about how to deal with the pig's eye in his mouth, the wonderful taste of the liquid started to blossom. This taste, Adolphus' eyes gradually brightened. It was a taste that was even more rich and delicious than the bone broth. As the heat dissipated, it started to heal his mouth that had been scalded by the boiling broth. What a wonderful taste. He didn't expect such gentleness to be hidden under the boiling sensation. There wasn't much liquid left. After he greedily sucked it out, he started to try chewing the rest of the eyeball. As an ophthalmologist with 30 years of clinical experience, this was indeed his first time eating pig's eyes. Or rather, it was his first time eating an eye that was bigger than a fish's eye. He had observed and dissected pig's eyes before, because pig's eyes were very similar to human eyes, and they were easier to obtain. However, it was his first time chewing and tasting pig's eyes seriously like this. The tough outer membrane was used to protect the eyeball. It was very chewy, and there was a part of the eyeball that was as brittle as a bone. It should be the translucent part of the eyeball. When he tasted it carefully, it was as if he was dissecting the pig's eye again. He felt that this pig's eye should be slightly different from the pig's eyes from the domestic pigs that he had dissected before. The structure was generally similar, but the contents inside should be different. There seemed to be more transparent material, and it was fuller. After a while, the first roasted pig's eye was swallowed. The wonderful taste was still lingering in his mouth. At this moment, he had completely retracted his previous arbitrary judgment. Such a delicious and special roasted pig's eye, even if it did not have any other effects. Just its mesmerizing taste alone was worth far more than 200 copper coins. "How is it? Do you feel anything?" Jason asked softly. Adolphus thought seriously for a while and said, "It smells really good." Jason was speechless. After eating this roasted pig's eye, there will be a hint of coolness around the eyes, but it is not obvious. If you don't pay attention to it, you will probably miss it. "Maybe it's working on the eyes," Adolphus said with a smile. "Right? We still have to give Mr. Mac credit for this," Jason said with a smile. Adolphus nodded in agreement and said, "If this roasted pig's eye can treat some difficult eye diseases, it will indeed be a great thing for the patients. This boss is indeed a genius. He can make such delicious roasted pig's eyes, and it can even treat illnesses." Jason placed a glass of rum in front of Adolphus with a smile and said, "Come, let the roasted pig's eyes cool first. Try this 15-year-old rum. It's much better than the 3-year-old rum that I bought years ago." Your Yangzhou fried rice. Yabamiya placed a plate of fried rice in front of Darren. What a beautiful fried rice. Darren moved closer, and his eyes lit up when he saw the fried rice with ingredients of various colors mixed together on the plate. His sister was right. It was as beautiful as a rainbow. "Wow, this fried rice looks really good." Dorothy's eyes lit up as well. The extremely good looks attracted her attention immediately. The fragrance of the eggs and various ingredients also made her swallow her saliva uncontrollably. "Big Sister Dorothy, this is super delicious." Darren looked up at Dorothy, picked up a spoon, and passed it to her. He smiled and said, "You can have the first bite. It's okay. I order a lot of food. This is for you and Lucy. You too can eat." Dorothy waved her hand with a smile and said, "After seeing your fried rice, I'm looking forward to the next dish even more. Seems like this is indeed a very good restaurant." "Big Sister, you eat." Darren turned the spoon to Lucy. "Darren, you eat." "I'll eat after you eat." Lucy shook her head. She took the spoon, scooped a spoonful of fried rice, and was about to feed it to Darren when she saw his eyes that had become much clearer. She stuffed the spoon back into his hand with a smile and said, "It's your turn to eat now." Darren took the spoon, but quickly put it back on the plate. He smiled shyly and said, "I'll wait for everyone to eat together." After the busy dinner service ended, the customers walked out of the restaurant with their slightly bloated bellies with satisfied smiles on their faces. Elizabeth quickly finished cleaning the restaurant, and the restaurant that had been open for a day looked brand new. "Everyone, go back and rest early. You still have work tomorrow." Meg took off his apron and smiled at everyone. However, no one had the intention to leave. Boss, we've all heard from Mia that if Shirley is trapped in the wind forest, we want to rescue her together, just like the operation at the Falk tribe previously. I believe we can definitely do it, Barbara said to Meg seriously. Yes, it's too unsafe there. We can't leave her there alone. Mia nodded. If necessary, I can ask the elders in the tribe for help. Gina raised her hand. I'm not sure if my uncle, who has just become a new ancestor, can control his power. However, if I threaten him with my life, I don't think he will refuse to come, Camilla said lazily as she leaned against the counter. I can fight 10 of them. Irina walked down from upstairs. Me too, Amy agreed with Ugly Duckling in her arms. Bookhouse reading website. Chapter 1644. Meg looked at everyone and fell silent for a while before nodding. Actually, I received a letter today, and I've obtained Shirley's latest exact location. If we want to take action, we have to go deep into the Elven territory. It's extremely dangerous. Then, Big Sister Shirley must be in great danger now, right? Anna asked Meg with concern. The others were also looking at Meg nervously. This was the first time they had heard of Shirley's exact location. She's slightly injured, but her condition is stable now. She's not in danger for now. Meg shook his head slightly. However, the wind forest is under full lockdown now. She won't be able to escape on her own. If that's the case, it's easier to make mistakes if there are too many people. I'll go back and bring her back. Irina looked at Meg. No one is more familiar with the wind forest than I am. Since that's the case, I'll have to trouble your highness to make the trip. Meg nodded slightly. She's my most capable vanguard. I naturally won't leave her there alone, Irina said matter-of-factly. Meg turned to everyone and said, I know everyone is concerned about Shirley, but the wind forest is more than 10 times more dangerous than the Falk tribe. Our goal is to bring Shirley back safely, so we'll leave this to Princess Irina. Everyone nodded slightly upon hearing that. Irina was far more powerful than everyone present. If only a small number of people were allowed to take action, she was undoubtedly the most suitable person. But, Your Highness, if you go back to the forest, Helena will definitely make you stay at all costs, Pyrrhus said worriedly. The scene of being surrounded in the goblins' underground cave was still vivid in her mind. It was too dangerous to return to the wind forest. The person who can make me stay is not born yet. As long as I want to leave, no one can make me stay. Irina patted Pyrrhus' head with a smile. Beansprout, stay at home and wait for me to come back. I'll take my leave first. Irina glanced at Meg. Then a faint golden light flashed beneath her feet, and she disappeared from the restaurant. Everyone, let's go back first. You might be able to see Shirley when you come tomorrow, Meg said with a smile. Only then did everyone bid their farewells and leave. After everyone left, Amy looked at Meg, who was closing the door, and asked doubtfully, But father, I don't think you told Big Sister Irina the address just now, right? I would have forgotten if you didn't mention it. Meg smacked his head, looked at Amy and Anna, and said, Looks like only Amy and Anna can sleep first tonight. I'm going to tell Irina the address and get her to bring Shirley back. Uncle Meg, you can really bring Sister Shirley back, right? Anna looked at Meg with tears in her eyes. Yes, we will definitely bring her back, because she's a member of our restaurant. She'll always be a member. Meg went forward and placed his hand on Anna's head gently with a smile. Take Anna to sleep first, okay? You'll be able to see her when you wake up tomorrow morning. Anna nodded vigorously. Let's go, Big Sister Anna. Let's go to sleep first. Father and Big Sister Irina will definitely be able to bring Sister Shirley back. Amy reached out to grab Anna's hand and led her upstairs. Meow. Ugly Duckling wagged its tail and followed behind the two of them. I'm leaving now. Meg turned to leave and closed the door slowly. Father, you must come back safely. Amy's voice sounded from behind the door. We will. Meg's lips curled up, and he disappeared from the restaurant's door. 5 minutes later, on the peak of a stone mountain outside the city, Irina was already sitting on a griffin's back. She turned her head to look at Meg, who was sitting behind her. Is it news from the Grey Temple? No, the Grey Temple hasn't received any concrete news about Shirley yet. Meg shook his head. You lied to them? Irina frowned. No, Meg shook his head with a smile. An old friend wrote me a letter and told me Shirley's exact location. An old friend? A woman? Irina's eyes narrowed slightly. See for yourself. Meg felt an unusual, murderous aura. He obediently took out a letter from his pocket and handed it to Irina. At the same time, he said, "Let's go, Ozzy. Let's explore the wind forest at night." How Ozzy let out a joyful cry. With a flap of its wings, it disappeared into the sky like a sharp arrow. Cough, cough. In a dimly lit room, a muffled cough sounded. The dim candlelight fell on the pale face on the bed. It still couldn't hide his handsomeness, but the pair of almond-shaped eyes that were usually lively couldn't hide the tiredness. He covered his mouth with a handkerchief and coughed twice to restrain himself. His good-looking eyebrows were twisted in pain. After a while, he removed his hand from his mouth. The white handkerchief was stained with blood. He put his hand on the edge of the bed to prevent the handkerchief from staining the white blanket. Creak. The sound of the door opening sounded. His body tensed up immediately. His right hand was already holding the sword hidden under the pillow. However, the door was quickly closed, followed by the sound of light footsteps. He relaxed his expression and let go of the sword. "I came back a little late today. I didn't find anything suitable for you to eat. There are only 2 fruits." Sally, who was wearing a rather luxurious long dress, came forward. She took out 2 red wild fruits and placed them on the wooden table beside the bed. Then she took out a small flask. "This is a small flask of holy water of life. It will be of some help to your injuries." Blower supported himself on the bed and sat up slowly. He looked at Sally seriously and said, "Thank you. It's all right. This is what I should do." A smile appeared on Sally's tired face. Chapter 1645. Helena stood on a high platform in the starry cave abode. Below the platform stood a dozen elves with their heads lowered. "I'll give you 3 days. Find Vincent's son, even if you have to dig 3 feet into the ground," Helena said coldly. "Yes," the elves replied fearfully. They quickly left after getting permission to leave. "Vincent really has a good son. He's stirring up trouble in the elven race." "Exactly. I thought it would be over after Irina took away those lowly slaves. I didn't expect him to kill so many lords alone. Hurry up and find her. Find her while she's injured. If she recovers, we don't know who will be the next victim." The elves chatted for a while before dispersing. "Don't worry, Great Elder. The wind forest has been completely sealed off. She definitely won't be able to escape." Elliot stood below the platform and looked at Helena with a flattering smile. Bor was dead. Although Sally's conferring ceremony was ruined, she still successfully became the new princess of the elven race. As a result, Elliot's status had soared, and he was now Helena's #1 favorite. He looked like he was second only to her and above everyone else. "If he doesn't die, I'm afraid you won't be able to live in peace for the rest of your life. You contributed a lot to Vincent's death." Helena's gaze landed on Elliot. Elliot's expression froze. However, he quickly smiled and said, "Vincent betrayed the elven race and tried to attack you. He deserves to die. His son is worse than him. He definitely won't live for long. Since he can't escape, we have to prevent others from coming to save him. With Irina's personality, she will definitely come to save him as long as she knows about him." Helena retracted her gaze. "News of him definitely won't get out. Besides, we've already made full preparations. As long as Irina dares to come, she definitely won't be able to leave," Elliot said confidently. "The letter was written to you by Sally?" Irina threw away the letter that had already been burned to ashes. She was a little surprised. "I should have told you that she worked as a waitress in the restaurant for a period of time." Meg nodded. She was engaged to Blower. However, Elliot was one of the attackers when Vincent was attacked and killed. Irina's brows furrowed slightly. So, she still chose to save Blower and protect him. "She's a good girl, that's for sure." Meg nodded. "How did you know?" "Ahem. The first thing a restaurant looks at when choosing employees is character. That was why I hired her." Meg cleared his throat to hide his awkwardness and continued, So, we only have to follow the map that she provided, go around those places that are heavily guarded, and pick up Blower at her residence. After that, we can evacuate immediately. It sounds very simple. It's not challenging at all. Irina pursed her lips disinterestedly. Since Sally helped Blower, we have to make sure that this matter doesn't affect her. Compared to other people, I think it might be a good result if she manages the elven race in the end, Meg said with a smile. Then, we have to kill her father first, Irina said with a serious expression. Although I don't like to be the queen, there are many people who covet this position. Elliot is even more arrogant. He can't wait to learn from Borg. Although you're right, it sounded a little strange. Meg sighed. He had to face this problem sooner or later. He didn't know what kind of situation it would be when the time came. Az's speed was extremely fast. Under its full speed, it arrived at the border of the wind forest in less than 2 hours. Az, retract your aura and fly higher, Meg ordered. The purple-striped griffin immediately flew higher. It pierced through the clouds and continued to fly toward the inner part of the wind forest. After Sally became the new princess of the elven race, she moved out of the Brewster family's territory and moved into the princess palace that was specially prepared for her. According to the elven tradition, the new princess will move into the cave where the Tree of Life is to cultivate a relationship with the Tree of Life and gain its approval. It seems like the little tree still doesn't want anyone to move in after I left, Irina said with a smile. Has the Tree of Life become a spirit? Meg asked curiously. I'm not sure about that either. However, it has spirituality and can sense many things. It also has preferences. In the elven race, it has the best relationship with me apart from my mother. Then it has really become a spirit. Meg's lips twitched. He was just about to open his mouth to speak. However, tree people weren't a particularly rare species in this world. The Tree of Life was regarded as the holy tree of the elven race. After thousands of years of worship, it would be strange if it didn't become a spirit. We're here, Irina reminded as she looked down. Az, go down. Meg patted Az lightly. The purple-striped griffin turned its body around and began to dive down silently. The scenery below gradually became clearer. The Princess Palace was built in the center of many buildings. It was adjacent to the Queen's Palace and was the core of the entire elven race. It was already late at night, but there were still bonfires lit everywhere. There were also elves patrolling the area. The security was tight. The purple-striped griffin made use of the dark night to land quietly in a dense forest. I've already confirmed their location. Wait for me here, Irina said to Mag before she turned into a shadow and disappeared in the direction of the Princess Palace. It's okay. It's good to be a private chauffeur. Meg reached out to pat Az's head. Az was trying to comfort him. What if his wife was too strong? He didn't want to be a burden. Tap, tap. There was a knock on the door. Blower instinctively grabbed the sword under his pillow. A hint of panic appeared on Sally's face, but she quickly suppressed it. She stood up and said, I'm already resting. If there's anything, we can talk about it tomorrow. I'm Irina. A voice sounded from outside the door. Your Highness. Both Blower and Sally's expressions changed at the same time. Sally turned to look at Blower. It's her. Blower nodded. He was completely sure that this was Irina's voice. Apart from worry, he was also touched. Sally quickly walked to the door and opened it. Hello, Sally. Irina stood at the door and smiled at Sally. Sally looked at Irina, who was wearing a white dress. She was just like the beautiful, proud, and powerful princess back then. She bowed slightly and said, Hello, Your Highness. Chapter 1646. Your Highness. Blower struggled to get up from his bed. He turned to Irina with surprise and concern in his eyes. Why are you here? I came to pick you up. Irina walked into the room, and her brows furrowed at the sight of Blower's pale face. A small brocade box appeared in her hand, and she opened it to reveal a golden pill. She handed it to Blower and said, Eat this. This is a life pill. Blower looked at the golden pill in the brocade box in shock. He opened the lid, and rich life, force, energy wafted toward him. It was far more abundant than the water of life. He hurriedly shook his head and said, "This is too precious. You shouldn't waste it on me. It's just a pill. What's so precious about it?" Irina pinched Blower's mouth and stuffed the pill into his mouth before feeding him a mouthful of water of life. "Your injuries are too severe, and there are too many guards outside. Helena will be able to detect my presence if I attack you. If you want to leave, you have to at least be able to walk on your own." Blower didn't say anything else upon hearing that. He sat down on the bed with his legs crossed and began to draw upon the rich life, force energy to heal his body. His body had been severely wounded by a 10th tier great magic caster's attack, but it was quickly healing under the nourishment of this powerful life, force energy. He was very touched that the princess would use something as precious as the life pill to heal his injuries. One had to realize that the queen had expended a large amount of milk of life to refine these pills. There were only 9 of them in total, and all of them were holy healing pills that could enhance one's cultivation. Sally closed the door and returned to her room. She looked at Irina, and her lips moved, but she chose to remain silent in the end. "You don't have to feel sorry for me. This isn't something that you can change." Irina looked at Sally with a smile and said, "I've been eating at Amy's a lot recently, and Amy and the others often mention you. If you have the chance in the future, you can go back and visit them." Sally's nasal voice became a little heavier as she looked at Irina with a smile. So everyone still hasn't forgotten about her. Tears welled up in Sally's eyes as memories of her time at Amy's flashed through her mind. A simple life, loving family, and delicious food. That was probably the happiest period of her life. However, she was now shouldering too many things, and she was afraid that there would be even more in the future. Even if she wanted to abandon everything and leave, she could no longer do so. "But why did you save him?" Irina looked into Sally's eyes and asked. No matter how she looked at it, she shouldn't have done it. Maybe we're all doing the same thing. Sally also looked at Irina, and her clear eyes lit up. Irina's eyes also lit up. She nodded and said, "Then we will definitely succeed." About 3 minutes later, Blower opened his eyes, got out of bed, and put on his shoes. "Thank you." Blower extended a deep bow toward Sally. "You're welcome." Sally nodded. "Let's go." Irina turned and walked toward the door. "Do you have a message for them?" Blower asked Sally. Sally was silent for a moment before shaking her head. "Take care." Blower turned and left with Irina. Sally stood at the door for a while, before closing it with a forlorn expression. From that day forth, she would be the only one left in this forest. "You're so good at switching between men's and women's clothes." Irina teased Blower as they easily evaded the guards outside the princess palace. "It's just a hobby," Blower replied in a slightly awkward manner. He stole a glance at Irina, worried that the princess would think that he was a pervert. Irina looked back at Blower with a serious expression and said, "I still like you in women's clothes." Blower raised an eyebrow. He pondered for a moment before nodding. "I'll change back when I get back. Anna, that lass, seems to like you a lot. She doesn't look too happy when she doesn't see you back," Irina said casually as she continued walking. "Anna." Blower clenched his fists tightly, and a hint of guilt welled up in his heart. He had thought that she would be happy to be with Amy and the others, but now it seemed that she was going to be very happy. "I'm very sorry about what happened to your father. I should be the one to avenge him, but you have to risk your life here." Irina stopped by the wall and turned to look at Blower with an apologetic expression. Blower shook his head. "Father died in battle for the elven race. You don't have to blame yourself or apologize. However, as his son, I should bear this grudge." "Then let's get some interest back today." Irina reached out and pulled off the blood-stained bandage around Blower's waist. Then, she used her fingers as a knife to cut it into 5 pieces. She wrote 2 lines of words on each piece. "Thank you for your help. I'll repay you 100-fold in the future. I'll repay you for your kindness today." Blower looked at the different words on each piece of cloth and looked at Irina in confusion. When we leave later, I'll throw them into the territories of Morris, Gibson, and those few families. Hasn't Helena been very strict recently? Even if they don't die, they'll be skinned alive first. Irina smiled. After seeing the patrolling elves leave, she brought Blower into the dense forest at the side. In the distance, Blower had already noticed the huge beast in the forest, as well as the man sitting on its back. That was the man who won the favor of the princess. That was the man who won the admiration of the entire world. That was the man who had once saved the night elves and accompanied the princess to release all the elven slaves. He had to admit that only such a man was worthy of the best princess. Let's go. Irina appeared beside Meg in a flash. Blower stood in front of the purple-striped griffin and bowed slightly to Meg to express his gratitude. Meg sized Blower up. It seemed like his injuries were better than he had imagined since he was able to walk here on his own. Irina must have already treated him. Come on up, Meg said in a low voice. Blower didn't hesitate. He tapped lightly on the tree at the side and landed lightly on the griffin's back. Let's go back. Meg patted Aziz's back gently. Aziz flapped its wings and rose silently into the sky again, piercing through the darkness like an arrow. When the purple-striped griffin rose to a sufficient height, Irina let go of the cloth strips, and the 5 strips of cloth fell in 5 different directions. Let's see who's the lucky one who can pick up these treasures, Irina said with a smile. No pop-up window. Chapter 1647. Amy, do you think Uncle Meg and Big Sister Irina will be able to bring Big Sister Shirley back? Anna asked worriedly as she sat on the bed and looked at the stars outside the window. Trust me, they'll definitely be able to, Amy replied as she sat beside Anna drowsily with Ugly Duckling's head resting on her pillow. Meow. Ugly Duckling also opened its eyes and answered drowsily. But why are they still not back after so long? Anna asked worriedly. Roast duck. Roast duck leg smells so good. Amy bit Ugly Duckling's head with a mysterious smile. Meanwhile, the drowsy Ugly Duckling's eyes widened as it slowly turned to look at Amy with fear. Anna turned to look at Amy. She got up and laid her down with resignation. Then, she covered her with a small blanket and lowered the brightness of the lights in the room. She sat by the window and continued to wait in a daze with her chin in her hands. After an unknown period of time, Anna. Blower pushed open the door, and his eyes reddened at the sight of Anna sleeping by the window. Anna seemed to have been woken up by the sound of the door opening. She raised her head and looked in the direction of the door. Big Brother Blower. Anna's eyes lit up immediately. She almost jumped out of her chair and threw herself into Blower's arms as she sobbed. You're finally back. I thought you didn't want Anna anymore. Anna, I'm back. I'm sorry to have made you worry, Blower said apologetically as he hugged Anna. Am I dreaming? Big Brother Blower, are you really back? Anna's tears fell as she looked up at Blower in disbelief. No, I'm back. I'm really back. Blower reached out to wipe away her tears as he shook his head with a pained expression. He didn't dare to imagine how Anna had spent this period of time. His heart and mind had been consumed by hatred, and he had almost forgotten that she was still waiting for him. Anna nodded. She reached out to touch the scab at the corner of Blower's eyebrow and begged with a pained expression, Can you not leave Anna again? Don't leave Anna alone again. All right, I won't do it again, Blower promised solemnly. It's good that you're back. We don't have to worry anymore. Meg stood outside the door and looked at the two of them with a smile. His gaze went past the two of them and landed on Amy, who was still sleeping soundly. The little girl was really not affected at all. Boss! Blower picked up Anna and turned to Meg with a grateful expression as he said, Thank you for taking care of Anna for me during this time. Anna's been a great help in the shop recently. She's also very happy with Amy. Meg shook his head with a smile and said, Stay here tonight. I'm afraid it's not convenient for you to go to the Elven Embassy. There's no need for that. My people have already established themselves in Chaos City. I can go and find them. Blower shook his head. After a brief moment of contemplation, he said, I need 3 days to recuperate. After that, I'll continue to work at the restaurant. 5 days. Come back to work after you've recovered. Meg didn't stop him. He helped Anna pack her luggage and sent them out of the restaurant. Do you think he's Shirley or Blower? Irina appeared next to Mag and asked as she watched the big and small figures walking away at the end of the long street. He's Blower, and he's also Shirley. Meg smiled and said, perhaps there's no conflict at all. He enjoys two identities, and he's also immersed in them. Irina pondered for a moment with furrowed brows and then nodded thoughtfully. Meg closed the door and casually asked, did Sally say anything? She's going to become the best elven princess after me, Irina said calmly. Very high praise. Meg looked at Irina with a surprised expression. After all, the height that she could reach was beyond the reach of most elves. However, you seem to be very interested in her. Irina turned to look at Meg. As a boss, it's normal to be concerned about an employee, Meg said seriously. She's the elven princess now, not your employee. That's not important. What's important is that she used to be one. That's enough, Meg said calmly. I'm a nostalgic person. I heard that before you met me. You met a desert flower at the border? Ahem, I don't think so. I seem to have forgotten some things after I got injured. I don't have any recollection of the desert. Meg was a little flustered. He really didn't want to take the blame. What desert flower? He didn't know anything about it. Shouldn't Medusa be the one staying in the desert? Hee, you'll sleep in the study tonight. Irina turned and went upstairs with a smile. Meg shrugged and went upstairs with a resigned expression. After bringing Blower back, he felt as if a rock had been lifted from his heart. Sally was still the cold and kind girl in his memory. It was a pity that he couldn't reveal his identity during this mission. Otherwise, he would have brought her some specialties from the restaurant. My lord, someone found this blood-stained cloth in the territory of the Moores family. The blood fiend confirmed that the bloodstains on it belonged to Blower. An elf quickly walked into the hall with a piece of cloth and presented it to Elliot with both hands. The Moores family is stationed at the border. Could it be that Blower has already left the Wind Forest through their territory? Elliot said angrily as he looked at the words of gratitude on the cloth. Even though the name wasn't written, the blood fiend had already confirmed the identity of the person who wrote it. Send people to surround the Moores family and bring Morris to the Starry Cave abode. The Great Elder will make the decision. Elliot quickly walked out with the cloth in his hand. He didn't expect the Moores family to do such a thing, even though they were at loggerheads. Look, what's that hanging on the tree? Outside the Gibson family's territory, a team of elves holding torches stopped in their tracks. The leader of the elves took down the cloth hanging on the tree, and his eyes lit up when he saw the words on it. Quick, let's go to the Brewster family's territory. We're going to be rich. Young master, you're finally back. Yngve stood in front of the courtyard gate and looked at Blower, who was holding in his hand, with tears glistening in his wrinkled eyes. I couldn't kill all my enemies and avenge my father. Blower lowered his eyes. Since the chief chose to die, he didn't want you to avenge him, Yngve said in a low voice. How can I bear to avenge my father's death? Blower pouted. Is this the purpose of the night, elves? Blower looked up at Yngve. His lips trembled, but he still shook his head in the end. Come in. It's good that you're back. Yngve took the luggage from him and turned to enter the courtyard. Bookhouse reading website. Chapter 1648. The stars are so beautiful. But which one is Grandpa? Grandpa said that he would become the little star on the right of the brightest star after he died. Look, it's over there. That little, but very bright little star. In the small courtyard, Lucy, who was wrapped in a cotton-padded coat, pointed to the sky and smiled. I see it. Darren's eyes lit up, and his little face was filled with excitement. Lucy turned to look at Darren with a smile, and firmly said, Darren, you will become an outstanding hunter. Darren retracted his gaze and hesitantly said to Lucy, but Grandpa Christopher said that we can go to school and become knowledgeable people. Don't you want to go back? Lucy frowned. Darren opened his mouth and then slowly lowered his eyes. He softly said, I will go back with Big Sister. I want to go back and return the money to the villagers. These are all their little savings. Lucy's expression softened. She patted Darren's head and said, "The villagers have helped us a lot all these years. We can't be ungrateful." Darren raised his head again and nodded at Lucy. "I know. Grandpa said that we can't be ungrateful. It's right that you want to become knowledgeable like Big Sister Dorothy. If Grandpa was still alive, he would definitely support you." Lucy looked at Darren with a serious expression and said, "But we can't just enjoy what others have given us for granted. Grandpa Christopher has already helped us treat your eyes. We should be grateful and repay him, and not continue to enjoy what he has given us." "Big sister, I know I was wrong." Darren lowered his head. "We have to make a trip back to the village tomorrow to return everyone's money. After that, we will come back to Chaos City." Lucy grabbed Darren's hand and smilingly said, "Big sister will work to support you." Darren raised his head immediately and looked at Lucy in surprise. "We're still coming back to Chaos City?" I'm going to send you to Chaos School so that you can become a knowledgeable person. Then you won't have to go hunting in the dangerous forest anymore." Lucy nodded. "But—" Darren looked at his frail sister, his heart aching and a little worried. "I will go and look for Grandpa Christopher tomorrow morning to bid him farewell. As for work, we will talk about it when we come to Chaos City again," Lucy said with a smile. She looked up at the sky again before pulling Darren to sleep. "This Chaos City is really far away. I thought I'd be able to get there in 10 days. Who would have thought that it would take me over a month to get there?" A caravan stopped outside Chaos City, and the curtains of a horse-drawn carriage were lifted. An elderly dwarf with a head of white hair lifted the curtains and looked at the dark city walls with a smile. "Yes, I didn't expect Isen Castle to be so far away from Chaos City. However, Master, you have so many luggage and tools. Even the biggest flying steed wouldn't be able to carry them all," Joss said with a smile as he looked out from the other side. Joey had already taken out his coat and respectfully said to Rome, "Master, Chaos City doesn't open its gates at night. You've been in the horse-drawn carriage for a day. Do you need to get off and move around?" "No need. I'll just stay in the carriage and sleep. We can enter the city tomorrow." Rome shook his head with a smile. He looked in the direction of the city walls and expectantly said, "I wonder if I can eat Meg's steamed fish head with diced hot red peppers tomorrow morning." "Master, is that steamed fish head with diced hot red peppers really that delicious?" Joss asked curiously. The news of Master Rome leaving Isen Castle caused quite a stir. Even the castle lord came to ask him to stay. However, no one knew that the master didn't leave because of the generous conditions that Chaos City offered him. Instead, it was because a chef from Chaos City made a steamed fish head with diced hot red peppers for him. Not only did he get the master, who hadn't made a dish for many years, to give him a cleaver that he made himself, he even moved his workshop all the way to Chaos City. The tightly shut city gates suddenly opened outward slowly, and 2 teams of cavalrymen with torches escorted a person towards their carriage. "This is Master Rome's carriage, right?" The person in the lead asked loudly as he urged his horse forward. "That's me." Rome stood up and let Joey put his coat on him. He then lifted the curtain and walked out. "Master Rome, I've heard a lot about you." That person urged his horse forward and cupped his fists at Rome. "I am Dicus from the City Lord's Castle's Secretariat. I am here on the City Lord's orders to bring Master Rome into the city to rest. Thank you for your kind intentions, City Lord." Rome was a little surprised, but he still cupped his fists. "Because Chaos City has a rule that carriages are not allowed to enter the city at night, we can only invite Master Rome's carriage into the city first. The carriages will enter the city tomorrow morning." Dicus smiled and made an inviting gesture. "It's indeed a good thing to be able to have a good night's sleep." Rome smiled as he got into the carriage. The coachman quickly drove the carriage into the city. "Master Rome? Could it be that legendary blacksmith from Isen Castle? It can't be, right? I heard that he hasn't left Isen Castle for hundreds of years. How could he appear in Chaos City? Maybe the city lord invited him? That's why he specially sent someone out of the city to welcome him?" All the merchants were envious when they saw that. They were guessing who was sitting in that carriage that could make the city lord's castle come out of the city to welcome him. However, no one tried to break the rules. "Master Rome, This is your first time in Chaos City. I'll have to trouble you to stay at the city lord's castle for the night. Someone will bring you to find a suitable place to stay tomorrow morning. Dicus arranged accommodation for Rome and the others and prepared to leave. Thank you. But, young friend, I have something to ask you, Rome said. Please go ahead. Have you heard of a restaurant called Mamie's in Chaos City? The one whose boss is Meg. Would you like to have a meal now? Mamie's is already closed for business. I'm afraid you won't be able to eat anything tonight. However, I can get the kitchen to prepare some food for you. Dicus looked at Rome with surprise. He didn't expect Mamie's to be so famous that even Master Rome had heard of it. The city lord valued this legendary blacksmith who had forged so many amazing weapons. However, he was also a little puzzled as to why Master Rome, who had never left Isen Castle, would choose Chaos City and move his workshop here. However, no matter what, this was a good thing for Chaos City. The arrival of a legendary blacksmith could attract a sizable group of powerhouses. Even though they were here to obtain the weapons personally forged by the blacksmith, since they were living in Chaos City, they naturally became a part of Chaos City's power and indirectly increased Chaos City's power. It's all right. Since it's already closed for business, let's go tomorrow. Rome waved his hand with a smile and said, We've already had our dinner. There's no need for the trouble. No pop-up window. Chapter 1649. I heard Master Rome has come to Chaos City. The Isen Castle branch received a huge sum of money some time ago. It was deposited by Master Rome. I heard he left Isen Castle long ago, but I didn't expect him to come to Chaos City. Hill and Ian sat opposite each other for breakfast as they chatted. Interesting. I wonder if it's the city lord's castle's doing that could make this old antique leave the castle that he had been holed up in for hundreds of years to spend his old age here. Ian said with a smile as he took a bite of the white egg. Didn't you have some dealings with him when you were young? He's not someone the city lord's castle can move. Back then, the king of the Roth Empire offered something the city lord's castle couldn't afford. Hill used a silk handkerchief to wipe his mouth. Ian stroked his chin with a puzzled expression and said, That's exactly what I'm curious about. What made him deposit all the money in the warehouse and then come all the way to Chaos City? If I didn't remember wrongly, the latest weapon that he forged should be Boss Mag's cleaver, Shear said. Cleaver? Could he be here for Amy's? Ian said with surprise. However, he shook his head and said, I don't think so. He's not particular about food. Perhaps you can ask him this question yourself. He shouldn't have many acquaintances in Chaos City. Hill stood up and left. That's a good suggestion. Although the deal back then didn't work out, at least I'm familiar with him. Ian ate the remaining half of the egg slowly before instructing, Prepare the carriage. We're going to the city lord's castle. Master, where should we set up our new workshop? Joey asked curiously as he helped Rome put on his coat. Joss was also looking at Master Rome expectantly. Although they were far away from Isen Castle, they were still blacksmiths as long as they had a workshop. Let's think about this after we have our meal, Rome said nonchalantly as he walked out. Do we need to meet up with the convoy? Joey asked again. I'll leave it to you. Someone from the mayor's palace will take you there. Once I've confirmed the location of the workshop, you can bring the equipment to the new place, Rome said to Joey. Yes. Joey nodded and left quickly. Master, the City Lord Mansion has prepared breakfast for us. Joss said. No need. Let's go straight to Mamie's for breakfast. Rome shook her head and walked straight to the door. Good morning, Master Rome. Are you heading to Amy's? Dicus asked with a smile when he saw Rome walking out of the courtyard. Yes. Rome nodded. Then I'll take you there. I'm a regular at Amy's, and I haven't had breakfast yet, Dicus said with a smile. Then I'll have to trouble you. Rome didn't refuse. Besides, it would be troublesome to ask someone for directions. However, it seemed that Mamie's was really famous. Even a random worker from the mayor's palace was a regular at the restaurant. The three of them walked out of the mayor's palace and were about to get into the carriage when a luxurious black carriage stopped in front of the mayor's palace. The coachman opened the door and Ian walked out. He He looked at Rome and the others who were about to get into the carriage and smiled. Master Rome, are you going out? You are? Rome looked back at Ian and thought for a while. His eyes lit up. You're the scammer? How can you say that? I'm the owner of a money house. Ian's face darkened. He didn't expect Rome to think that he was a scammer. At his level, there was no need for him to make friends with any master blacksmiths. He didn't lack anything, and he didn't need a legendary weapon. That thing wasn't as attractive to him as a high-quality fishing rod. It was just that he was getting old, and there were fewer and fewer old friends. He had spent some time at Isen Castle when he opened up the market, and an old friend came to visit, so he wanted to meet him. That's what everyone called you back then. I just didn't expect to put my money in your money house now. Rome smiled. The last time he saw Ian was over 40 years ago. He was still quite young back then. In order to make him deposit his money in his money house, he stood guard outside the forge almost every day. He was even more attentive than those who came to ask for weapons, and left a deep impression on him. Decades passed in the blink of an eye, and he had become the owner of the largest money house on the Northern continent. He had also become a little old man. I didn't expect that I would have to wait for my granddaughter to complete this task. Ian shrugged. He couldn't help but smile when he thought of the past. He looked at Rome and said, Master, where are you going? It's rare for us to meet. Why don't we have a cup of tea together? Rome directly boarded the horse-drawn carriage and bluntly said, There's no need for tea this early in the morning. I'm going to Mamie's for breakfast, and I have to book a place for the forge after that. I don't have time for tea. Then we'll take our leave, Mr. Ian, Dicus said with a smile. He boarded the horse-drawn carriage and instructed the coachman to go to Mamie's. He's in such a hurry to go to Mamie's for breakfast this early in the morning. Don't tell me he's really here because of that Meg brat? Ian looked on with surprise as the horse-drawn carriage disappeared into the distance. He didn't expect his invitation to be rejected. He was still thinking of recommending a few good shops to Rome because of their old friendship. Let's go to Mamie's and have a look. Ian waved his hand. Master, didn't you already have breakfast this morning? The butler standing behind him asked. I'm only 70% full. Let's go and see what kind of magic this Mamie's has that could make this old fellow Rome move all the way here. Ian turned and boarded the horse-drawn carriage. Let's go to Mamie's. The butler instructed the coachman before entering the carriage and closing the door. Is Master Rome an old acquaintance of Mr. Mac? Dicus asked Rome curiously in the horse-drawn carriage. We've met at Isen Castle. I've eaten his dishes, Rome answered. It's indeed very difficult to put down Mr. Mac's dishes after eating them. Yes, that steamed fish head with diced hot red peppers is the most delicious food I've ever eaten. Rome nodded with a smile. He couldn't help feeling a little excited at the thought of being able to eat again soon. Dicus looked at Rome and could vaguely guess the reason why Rome moved his workshop all the way to Chaos City. Mr. Mac was really a rare talent. He managed to attract such a great blacksmith to Chaos City with just a steamed fish head with diced hot red peppers. The horse-drawn carriage stopped. Dicus lifted the curtain and took a look. He stood up and said, We've arrived at Mamie's. Rome alighted too. When he saw the long line of people at the entrance of the restaurant, he couldn't help but ask in surprise, So many people? We're considered early. This line will stretch all the way to the square, Dicus said with a smile. No pop-up window, that you're tuning in to the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.